Happy World 1 billion. I also like the starting soon screen. Jay made it. I do not anticipate stream guests. We're just gonna chill for today. It'll be nice and relaxing. Hello, everyone. We're gonna give it a bit, wait for stream to start. Let people filter in and whatnot. How is everyone doing today? Music is a bit louder than me? Really? You're gonna bake a cake today? That's cool. I made pancakes for breakfast. First stream caught and we were in bed cozy. Hell yes. Hey, ACT, about to go to my GFs, but I'll tune in like half an hour. Don't do that. Don't go see your partner. Watch me stream. You do not have a choice. I made some iced coffee, had some pancakes for breakfast. All wonderful. Who upcrypting their theism? So true! So real! Don't go on the train either. Sit in a featureless dark room and just watch my stream and take extensive notes. CT, how bad is it if I'm making a daemon and accidentally came up with the perfect name while still only half designed? That's fine. As long as you don't, like, putting the name on it is kind of the button at the end, but you can come up with it beforehand. That's fine. If it still works at the end. It is tagged educational because we're going to be learning. We're going to be talking about philosophy. You like learning, don't you? You're reading internet horror for actual homework? Who's my favorite philosopher? I honestly like Wittgenstein. He's in the same vein as Alan Turing of, like, weird gay asexuals. Or no, Alan Turing wasn't asexual, he was just gay. I think they invented... No, that's not true. They invented Ludwig Wittgenstein just to give Heraclitus a W. 2,500 years later, it's like, yes, finally! Someone's influenced by my ontology! Does the AZ quotes edit of Thomas Aquinas I made to win an argument count as fan art? Yes, it does. On the cults, religions, and Warframe more? Yeah, there's some early stuff in, like, some of the factions that I wasn't around for, but I thought that would be kind of cool. Oh yeah, if you like me, join my Patreon. It'll be on a scroll at the bottom or whatever. What's good, Stinkies? Not much. We're just chilling. We're waiting for people to file in. We're gonna get wise today. I don't know if you know about that, but you can get wise. Yeah, you can learn things. You can put things in your brain, and it makes you smarter. It's pretty cool. Oh yeah, they did mention the worship of Sol and Luna. Or Lua. Yeah, the Red Veil. That was interesting. They're like weird, like, itinerant mystics. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff in Warframe lore that it seems like was explored in, like, live events that weren't really preserved or were sunsetted or something. I've been told that the Red Veil got more lore, but it was for an event. The only thing I remember of them was that one quest from Chains of Harrow. I like the factions. They're interesting, but they're also very much like, I don't know, what you get kind of more early on in an MMO's lifetime, where it's clearly trying to make none of them the good guys, and none of them really the bad guys. They all have their interesting things going on. They're very functional. I have nothing against them. I do like the proto frames a lot. They add a lot of much needed character to kind of fill out Warframe's, I don't know, not lore, but like seeing how the various events of Warframe affect people on an individual level. That is very interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. And I do like how they kind of squeezed an entire second setting into Warframe. Have you gotten through the new Protoframe plot lines? No, I haven't. I'm still grinding out Temple. That's probably what we're going to be doing today. They added like 3 or 4 new ones. Shit's cool. I dig it. It's like, I honestly wouldn't be upset if they spent the next 10 years of Warframe's lifespan in the 1999 setting. It's really interesting, and it fits thematically with Warframe very well. Cannot believe I'm bored enough to actually reinstall Warframe. It is the game of the patient gamer. It's a very good, I need to listen to a philosophy lecture. Alright, CT, try not to burp directly into the mic. That's probably good. Yeah, I like to put it on and grind when I'm listening to a philosophy lecture if I just need something to do with my hands. You're not the patient gamer? Well, then don't play Warframe! Don't play Warframe! Don't do it! Don't! I know absolutely nothing about it. I look forward to getting my mind blown smooth off. I mean, we're not going to be recounting Warframe lore. I'm probably going to be talking about, like, real-world philosophy on this. We're probably also going to be talking about Warframe lore. I take that back. Used to run strikes in Destiny 2 while listening to podcasts. I don't think I have a lot of people that were into Warframe, but none of them have ever said that I have a lot of friends that were into Destiny and Destiny 2, and I've never heard one of them say that Destiny was good. It seems like every other month they would show up in my DMs like, dude, they fixed Warframe, or they fixed Destiny, and then in the next month's update it was like, they broke Destiny 2 again. It's bad now, again. It's good in bad ways. It used to be good, but it was so long ago. I don't think that's true. I think that's a fallacy. I think you're regaling to an imagined better past, which is a little bit fascist of you, actually. Yeah, it's reactionary nostalgia for Destiny 2. Do any of you guys know anything about Greek philosophy? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all that jazz? Slightly? Nope. .101 level amount. Plato's his wrestler name. Plato was straight. I like Greek food. I also like Greek food. Some dude was huffing shit in a cave. Dude, if you were in the ancient Mediterranean, you couldn't go anywhere without, like, every cave was occupied by at least 1.2 mystics per mystic. That shit was happening all over. You couldn't get away from that. Socrates is annoying in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Well, that's probably true to life then. He was infamously, like... I mean, people liked him, but he was infamously kind of annoying and a bit of a bitch. Man in cave construction economy must have been booming. They weren't really building stuff in caves. It was like magic. You didn't want to put too much stuff in the caves because they were like mystically important places. It's an entrance to the underworld. That's where the guy got his big pot. That guy is named Diogenes of Sinope, and it was actually a bathtub. It wasn't a pot. They were constructing the caves themselves for hermit philosophers to live in. Yeah, that's true. You're a professional dilettante. It's all fun knowing things and none of the work. Ah, yeah, I getcha. See, that's my problem. I actually gotta write things. Did Alexander of Abonticus count as a Greek philosopher? I don't know. I've never heard of that guy before. There's quite the range of Greek philosophy for a person to understand, and I do not understand all of it. My focus is very narrow on a couple specific guys. Something about how triangles are all trying to be the perfect triangle. That's true, actually. We'll talk about that. I'm interested in what is so Aristotelian about medieval Christianity. We are going to talk about that. That's really interesting, actually, because it's kind of a lie. All right. I think it's about time. So, what we're going to be doing today is grinding out Temple. I'm sure many of you have already been doing this in Warframe, but we're going to do that. Lavo! Yes! My boy Lavo! Yeah, it's Lesad Demiurge. He's there to cover up the fact that my copy of Windows is definitely legitimate and has been activated. If the point of philosophy was to leave Plato's cave, why did they love living there so much? Well, you have to live there. That's the point of Plato's cave, is that that's how the universe works. Like, alright. So the reason I wanted to do streams like this is that talking about the things that I'm reading helps me structure it in my brain, helps me write about it better. Oh yeah, if you guys don't know, I write books about like magic and shit for a living. A lot of people surprisingly don't know that. I feel like I have to mention that just in case. Also tell me how the game audio is. So, talking about this shit live helps me structure my thoughts, right? So, I've been brushing up on all my Greek philosophy because I recently printed out the entire draft of the book that I'm writing and read over the parts about Greco-Roman philosophy and the early antique era, and I wrote those 3 years ago. They do not hold up very well. They are kind of dog shit. Game loud help. What? Let me just fix that. How's that? You are choosing to rub our faces in your disgusting rotation. Yay, thank you. All right, is that better? Is that better? Better? Okay. Well, yeah, okay. So I write shit for a living. Talking about it helps me structure my thoughts. Give the screamers their time to shout every 3 waves. Yeah, we're going to be doing that. Have you guys ever, like, if you've ever had a long artistic project, there's kind of nothing more embarrassing than whatever you were doing exactly 3 years ago, and that's a sliding scale. Like, doesn't matter what you're doing. Whatever you were working on exactly 3 years ago from today is the most embarrassing thing on Earth. And for me, that is the section on Greco-Roman magic, which was barely complete as is, and so I've been revisiting that. So we're gonna talk about that. So, all right. The things that I am interested in when it comes to Greek philosophy and the occult, there is quite a bit of folk magic, or things that we would describe as magic in the ancient Greek world. Lots of different things, roles that people would inhabit, like the difference between a wandering mystic and the rhizotomoi, the root cutters, which were sort of like itinerant healers that were less than trustworthy, versus the thaumatopoi, which were literally translates to wonder workers or miracle workers, who were in some way connected to the like state auspices. We're not going to talk about that too much on this stream. What I want to talk about is basically the concept of esotericism, right? And the father of esotericism, Western esotericism, there's no buts about it, it's Plato. If you want to really truly understand Western esotericism, you got to read Plato. So I've been brushing up on my Plato. And the thing about Plato is that if you want to understand him, you kind of got to get into his influences, which were Pythagoras and some of the other pre-Socratics and Socrates himself. Now, if you've never read Socrates, he was kind of a bit of a trickster. He was famous for showing up, and he would never really tell people what the truth was. He would just kind of ask them questions like, what's friendship? And then you would say something like, well, I think friendship is when you like a person. And then he would he'd just ask you a question, you know, give you a little bit of a counterexample. And by the end of it, nobody knew what the hell they were talking about, and you realized that you never actually understood what friendship is, and then Socrates would leave, and you knew less than when you started. That's exactly him in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Well, good, then they're characterizing him correctly. He was also famously short and ugly, but very charming in an annoying way. Sounds like the least fun guy at a party. People fucking loved him. They loved him, but he was very irreverent, you know? That's... Because the other important thing about Socrates is that they frickin' killed him. I like the cut of this guy's jib. Yeah, a lot of people did. A lot of people in Athens did. But, so, alright. 2 important things for anything in regards to occultism is how does knowledge work and how does physics work? You know, what is the world made of? What causes actions? And how do you know things? If you're ever trying to study an occult philosopher or trying to read something with an occult lens, those are the first 2 things you got to look at. And the interesting thing with Socrates is that, judging from his work, you kind of can't know anything. I don't think he really believed that you could ever truly share information with someone. Isn't Short, Ugly, and Charming also Paracelsus? No, he was a bastard. Like, people just hated him. Like, there was no, like, rakish rogue element to Paracelsus. People just didn't like him. The original 4chaner. No. You guys aren't getting it, right? He's not an asshole. Not in that way. He's not like he's not trying to be mean or contrarian or trolling people. He genuinely does care about trying to teach people. But the way he does that is through asking them questions. Because you see, there's this idea that I know something, and I can just pour it into your brain, right? I can just tell you things, and then you know them. And Socrates says, no, that's absolutely not how anything works. Chef, that's absolutely not how anything works, ever. He says that you can only arrive at knowledge organically. All you can do is point the way towards knowledge. Like, you know what you want a person to know. Like, you understand the knowledge that you want people to understand, and you can kind of point them in that direction. You can point them towards discovering it, but you can't just directly transfer knowledge. And the process of gaining knowledge requires divine inspiration. Yeah, he's asking questions to make people think about the subject so that they arrive at that subject themselves. And part of that process is you have to be divinely inspired. The gods have to literally give you the knowledge. Like, as if the idea of contemplating the world itself, of, like, thinking about the world in a deep and philosophically pertinent way, literally loving knowledge, is itself a votive act to the god of knowledge itself, to the spirit of knowledge, who then rewards you by giving you a peek under the veil, like, revealing a part of itself. There's if you know about Parmenides, he wrote a poem about... He wrote a poem about that, called, I believe, literally just the Proem of Parmenides. That's proem with an R. Where he talks about, like, literally the act of studying philosophy is itself a religious practice. You are, by thinking about things, you are going through a votive act to Nous, the god of logic and discourse, or this deified personification of knowledge itself. And you are literally, like, she is giving, dear Nyx is giving you a peek under the veil of night, right? Literally revealing itself to you. Thoth! Yes, that's also Thoth. That's also where we get a lot of the shit about Hermes Trismegistus, is this idea of, you know, Nuit and the god of knowledge as a, like, kind of a coy feminine figure, right? You know, she's wearing a veil and she's rolling up her sultry little ankle whenever you learn something. Hashtag thank you, Nyx. Yeah, let's all take a second to hashtag thank you, Nyx in chat. Thank you. Oh, the veil. ISIS is blocked. That's really funny. Hey, I don't want any of you supporting the Islamic State of Syria and the Levant in chat, all right? Twitch is on that shit. No supporting ISIS in chat. Okay. Just for our little history posting, to make sure that I'm not misleading you, the Parmenides was not talking about Nyx, right? Nyx is often, in, like, modern occultism, is often equated with the aspect of the world that hides knowledge and wisdom from you. That's not what Parmenides was talking about. He personified knowledge as, literally used the Greek term nous, which there's a quote in my notes here, but I'm playing Warframe right now. Let's see if I can't read while I'm doing this. No, I can't. This was a bad idea. Whee! So, okay. That's what goes into Socrates, and then that's what goes into Plato, right? The other big ingredient in Plato is Pythagoras. And we don't know much about Pythagoras. Most of what we know about him is actually the presentation of him that we get in Plato, right? Because Plato was kind of a Pythagorean, but not really. He liked some ideas from Pythagoras and disagreed with others. We're not entirely sure. We don't really know what Pythagoras believed, but he kind of ran a math cult. I know if there's any classicists that hear me describe it that way, they're going to get mad at me, but he ran a fucking math cult, right? It was a initiatory mystical cult of geometry. Honestly, so real. I do like some ideas and I don't like others. Well, you'd get along with Plato then, because most of the way that he structured his writings, like, he doesn't just say, here's what I think and here's why it's right. Everything is structured as dialogues. He's a very literary writer. And the more you get into Plato, the more you realize that he is fucking with you. Everything about Plato is fucking with you. He is a trickster. His dialogues often directly contradict each other. There's large gaps in between the version of Plato that you see presented in any two speakers, right? And yeah, yes, May. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're a pervert for all of this stuff, so you're probably going to have a lot to add. If I get anything wrong, just yell at me. You're allowed to hit me with a hammer if I say anything wrong about Plato. Pythagoras, the first less wronger. No. You're just... This is a little mean, but I know you're just saying that because, you know, you've read about less wrongers in the news recently. That's not how that works. Like, he was very much not like that. Pythagoras was... Yeah, there might even be an entire esoteric school that Pythagoras ran, and we just don't know anything about it. Like, the joke about them is that they didn't eat beans because they thought that souls were in them. He was very much not like that. Yeah, he had publications. Yeah. That's true. I also read a thing that apparently Pythagoreans staged a coup in one of the Athenian states. I can neither confirm nor deny that, but it would be very funny to see what a Pythagorean cult would try to actually do. In Italy. So that's true. Okay. A hypothetical coup? Alright. Well, regardless, the important thing about Pythagoras for our purposes, for the purposes of occult history, is that their view... They believe that whole right philosophy makes right politics. Yes, which is something that does kind of filter into Plato. But the important thing about Pythagoras for the purposes of occult philosophy is that their physics, how they understood the world to be, was that it was fundamentally harmonical in nature. As in musical, right? Some things are in harmony with other things, and when things are harmonious, when action and speech and thought are in harmony with each other, that is the correct way to exist, and the universe will reward you in some way for participating in universal harmony. Did they actually drown a man for saying dodecahedron? I don't know. There's a lot of things that people say about the Pythagoreans that are hard to quantify, because some people did not like them very much, And it's very possible that a lot of the things that we have about them is polemical, written by their enemies to discredit them. Thought it was drowning over irrational numbers existing. Also possible. Can neither confirm nor deny. So, harmonical physics. Plato picks that up a little bit, right? There's a little bit of that, but Plato's ultimate version of the world, I'm sure you've all heard the term Platonic formalism, right? And it's the idea that being alive, existing, is you're just watching the shadows on the cave wall, and the real universe, the world of forms, is what's actually moving and shaking the universe behind the scenes, right? That there is a second, higher layer of reality beyond the one that we can see and touch and understand and think about, that is perfect in some way, untouched by the imperfections of material reality. And that's where difference comes from, right? Two apples are different because they're both imperfect forms of the ideal apple up in the world of forms, right? Wait, the forms version is real? I thought of it like an ephemeral reference document of reality. Well, kind of. The forms are hyper-real. They are more real than reality itself, which is itself the shadow, right? Smoking that strain that ascends me to the world of forms. Well, people would try that, like getting crunk off the Kaikeion. So that's Plato, right? That's Plato's physics, is that the whole universe is just shadows on the cave wall, but there's ideal forms that, and that's what you're dealing with in philosophy. When you think about philosophy, you are closer in some way to the world of forms. You're thinking about the more pure superstrata of the universe that allows it to exist. And that was... So, okay. Let me check my notes. So, okay. If you took a bite out of the ideal apple, would it take a bite out of every apple? Well, it depends. See, here's the thing. Plato never actually... you can read all of Plato, and there's no point in any of his dialogues... when he says, I have a theory of forms, and this is how they work. He never says that. Plato never directly says anything. The theory of forms, as we understand it, was actually set out by the Middle Platonists, his followers, who assembled a more coherent, systemic understanding of his ideas. And, again, I will remind you, Plato regularly contradicts himself. We don't really know what he was talking about in a definite way, because that's not how he thought about things. That's not how he wrote about things. And yes, ideals can't change. They are perfect and unchanging. Although, that's just what the Middle Platonists say, because, see, the guy after Plato was Aristotle. And boy, oh boy, if you are interested in occult history, you have to understand Aristotle and the fraught textual history behind him, right? So, Aristotle is the exact opposite of Plato in a lot of ways. They agree on a couple things, they disagree on a lot of things. Where Plato was more head in the clouds, talking about, his theories of forms and how the universe is kind of a hologram and all that nonsense. Or, not nonsense, it's just what he thought about things. Aristotle was very into math, right? He kind of invented formal logic. Where Plato was an idealist, Aristotle was an empiricist. Yes, that famous philosophy painting, the debating philosophers. Plato is pointing up towards the sky, the world of forms and ideas, where Aristotle is pointing down towards the earth, about the logical, the mundane, and the empirical. So, it's... The thing about it, especially in regards to occult history, is that Aristotle is actually way more important, even though most philosophers see him as the anti-esotericist. And the reasons behind that are fascinating. So, the thing about Aristotle is that he taught Alexander the Great. And when Alexander the Great died, it immediately created an explosion of legends about him. All sorts of people wanted to lie about what was happening to Alexander the Great during his life. And Aristotle, obviously, was a major character in all that, right? So he goes from being this, like, very empirical guy who was concerned with writing down all the different types of ants, you know, making dictionaries. That's the level of empirical thought that we're on. He wants to understand how many ants there are and what are the different qualities of ants. Suddenly, in the popular culture, he goes from being the math and logic guy to being the Merlin the Wizard to the King Arthur of Alexander the Great, right? Yeah, good luck counting all those ants. They're small as fuck, and there's like 1 billion of them. Yes, he wanted to find out what a heap was. Exactly that type of philosopher. But you wouldn't know that if you were around in the 2nd century trying to read about Aristotle, right? I would have been so mad if I was Aristotle. Dude, Aristotle would be so mad if he understood his philosophical reception in Western philosophy, because that reputation, because people just started writing like just completely made up shit and attributing it to Aristotle, because in ancient Greece there were basically 2 ways to give yourself clout. Is you had to either be like a transcendent genius, you had to be like a legendary hero, or you had to be a legendary teacher, right? So a really good way to get clout for whatever it is you're writing is just to lie and say that Socrates wrote it, or lie and say that Aristotle wrote it. And this means that a lot of things that Aristotle absolutely would not have thought were then attributed to pseudo-Aristotles. And the problem is, especially with studying Aristotle, is that the second reception of him as this pseudo-Aristotle is arguably... Okay, we can solidly say that it was as important, if not more important, than the shit that Aristotle actually wrote. And a lot of that shit is esoteric. A lot of that shit definitely falls into esotericism. And the thing about that is that Plato and Aristotle disagree on a lot of shit. So Aristotle literally got banished to the world of forms and echo incorrectly throughout history. Yes, exactly. They're all imperfect. Bleh. They are all imperfect representations of the true formal Aristotle. Exactly. He would have been so mad. And that's where a lot of classical esoterica comes from, because if you'll remember, Plato and Aristotle disagreed on a lot of things. But as the centuries go on, you had the Middle Platonists who had varying views on Aristotle. So the task of trying to reconcile Plato and Aristotle, trying to figure out where they met and where they agreed, is kind of... Oh, someone on Tumblr said this really well. I forget who said it, but it was people trying to reconcile them, to combine their philosophies, became the cobblestone generator of Western philosophy and Western esotericism. And that's such an apt way to describe it. It's just people constantly mashing these two guys together and then just getting whatever out of it. Because to get them to agree, because Aristotle thought, no, there's no such thing as forms. That's bullshit. There's just atoms and void, and just inanimate objects bumping into each other. Even Aristotle's opinion of gods is kind of iffy. It's not really sure if he believes in them or not. But so to get them to agree, you got to do some real wiggity philosophy shit. And that is where we get that's where we get the late Platonists and my boy Plotinus. Because if you want to talk about, like, OG origins of occult philosophy, fucking the Enneads of Plotinus are one of the first places you go. Oh, yes, yes. Okay. So in Plato, if we roll back to Plato real quick, he has a dialogue called Timaeus, which is a dialogue between Plato and his student Timaeus. And it's structured as a couple people debating the origins of the universe, you know? How do you think the universe came into being, right? Was it just born ex nihilo? Did something make it? Did the gods, like, did Phanes, like, become a hermaphrodite and then have sex with himself and then give birth to the universe? Who knows? We don't actually know for sure. But his student, Timaeus, gives an account that actually there was something that made the universe, a weaver who wove the world soul out of nothing and then cut it into strips and then literally built the universe out of this fabric of world soul like someone designing a garment. You know, it's all the same fabric, but you can shape a garment into a lot of different ways, right? And the word that Timaeus uses for this is the ancient Greek demiurgos, literally weaver or craftsman. And that is where we get the term demiurge from. So if you like Gnosticism, look no further than the fucking Timaeus. That's where you see the prefiguring of the demiurge. Because once all those various Hebrews got a hand on, like, you can basically say that Western philosophy, like Western esotericism itself, is the collision of, like, the intellectual tradition of Platonic philosophy and the monotheism that gave us Judaism. When those two things slap into each other, you get Western philosophy. And that is triply true for Western esotericism. Because once you start getting early Jewish writers reading reading Plato and talking about the demiurge, that's basically where you get Gnosticism, right? Because at the same time that people were, or not same time, like, Gnosticism emerged far after Plato, several centuries later. At the time that you had all that Gnosticism shit going on, you had a lot of internal struggles within Judaism. There were like 4 different versions of Judaism, all competing to be the real Judaism. And a lot of them started, you know, incorporating a lot of Platonist philosophy into that. And that's where you got Gnosticism, and one of the foundational elements of Western esotericism. It's real cool. I love that shit. It's awesome. I gotta read chat. The Roman invasions were great for weird religious schisms. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, hi, Holly. I was so in the zone, I didn't even realize you joined. What you drinking? Water! Dude! Oh, shit. I've been talking a lot. I gotta drink water. Cave Shadow of Judaism? Nah, this isn't even Cave Shadow of Judaism. This is the Cave Shadow of what would eventually become Judaism. Well, and part of the, like... Oh, man. It's like, early Judaism and Platonist philosophy, they influenced themselves way more than I think anyone really has a concept of. Like, they're right fucking next door to each other. Oh, wait, actually, I want to check how much goo I have. This was 1999 the whole time? Yup. P-Jack. Let's see. I have notes here. Let me go through these. Oh yeah, I wrote down that fucking there's a reference to the Timaeus in the Jay-Z song "No Church in the Wild." I didn't write down the lyric, but he does reference the Timaeus in that song. Let's see. Plotinus. Let's talk about Plotinus. So that whole project of trying to combine those two boys, of trying to combine Plato and Aristotle, it's real tricky, real philosophically tricky. You got to do some real wacky stuff to make that work. I don't know if you've ever tried to read the Enneads of Plotinus, but it's real tough. One of my few claims to fame as an occultist is that I've actually read the Enneads cover to cover and done my best to actually understand it. Because how do you combine the ideas of the world is just a hologram and nothing is real and there's a secret hidden world of forms that is the actual universe, and actually none of that shit is real, there's just atoms bumping into each other? And what you get out of that is there is an ineffable, ultimate, transcendent one. A thing so beyond our comprehension that it cannot be broken down. You can't even describe it. Language is fundamentally immaterial to it. You can only describe it in the negative, on aporeia, which that doesn't literally mean the unsaying, but you can only describe it as the things that it is not. It is both within language and beyond language. And that ultimate transcendent one kind of steps itself down through a process of existing next to itself. Kind of filters down into reality like wine through a tower of wine glasses, like they do at weddings. And then that creates
like trickle-down economics.
Yeah, it's trickle-down theology instead, but also at the bottom, it filters up into the top, right? Yep.
Oh, it's trickle up.
It's trickle down and trickle up. It's trickle circle theology. Apophatic, that's the word. That's the unsaying.
It's the great, beautiful continuity of the ocean.
Yup. You know, when Judaism got their hands on emanation theology like this, on this Neoplatonic theology, which is what we're talking about here, there was a Jewish philosopher named Isaac Luria who, when he was contemplating how God worked, he was reportedly sitting in a square somewhere in Cordova, and he was watching the sun, the rising sun, filter through a fountain that was moving very similarly to this, and he was like, bam, that's how God works. It is literally the beauty of the ocean, and that's how God works. You get it, Holly.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you're a Neoplatonist now. Good job.
Oh. Is that good?
It is good. It's the foundation of basically all of Western theology.
Nice. They're calling me the foundation.
They call her the foundation. They call her the foundation of all thought. So, the other thing with all of this is that once monotheism started taking over, Plato writes a lot about gods plural, and that's not super cool to talk about with Christians. They're like, no, there's one God. We can't be talking about this Plato guy. But he's also a really important philosopher. But at the same time, Aristotle, who just liked to talk about math, he was basically considered orthodox. He was like, yeah, he's pagan, but he just talked about like math and how many ants there are on the planet Earth forever. So we can talk about him in a Christian context. So what people started doing, and the gay stuff and the pederasty, but we'll ignore that. So what they started doing was people would start writing texts, like they would start sneaking Plato texts and just saying like, yeah, this is a lost Aristotle dialogue. This is the theology of Aristotle, even though it's actually just selections from Plotinus that we're pretending is Aristotle, because he's the one that it's okay to study as a Muslim Islamic scholar in the 8th century. So there's a lot of oh my god, the other thing is that, so once Greek philosophy started expanding, once, you know, the Christianity really started going and Islam fired its way up, you got some, let's see, how do I describe this? So what would eventually become the Muslim world, you know, the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, they'd been interacting with all of this, like, they'd been interacting with Plato and Aristotle for a long time, and they'd been interacting with all of the pseudo-literature. So it was a big thing once Christianity took over in Greece that people were still trying to reconcile Plato and Aristotle. It was like, how can we fit them together? How can we use Christian theology to fit them together? That was a big thing in early Christian philosophy. But when you pop over to the Muslim world, they had already been reading all of the pseudo-Aristotle literature and all of the Neoplatonist literature. So when Christians were like, oh man, it's so hard to reconcile Plato and Aristotle, they were like, what do you mean? They already agree. I don't understand. What do you mean they contradict each other? Plato is not beating the Aristotle allegations. He is if you do your textual history correctly, but Aristotle is not beating the Plato allegations. So, when you look at early Islamic theology, like, Neoplatonism is just a given. They're like, oh yeah, no, obviously, that's how all this shit works. Meanwhile, the Christians are like, how do we do this? How do we fit these guys together? It took them a millennia and a half for Thomas Aquinas to be like, I've got it. I finally got it. I figured out a way to fit it all together. Meanwhile, Islam is like, nah, we've had this shit locked down since the 8th century. Skill issue. It's that easy. Arguably, Socrates is the one who not beating Plato allegations. If I recall correctly, there's a widespread theory that Plato made Socrates up. Okay, Plato didn't make up Socrates, but he used Socrates as a character in his dialogues. Which is hilarious, and absolutely a Plato move, is just using a real guy, but then having him say things that Socrates absolutely would never have said, and disagree with opinions that Socrates definitely had. You people talking about ants just summoned a heap into my bathroom? What do you mean, you people? I'm the only one talking. Honestly, power...
Now it's people.
Yeah, now it's people. There you go. Can you talk about ants?
Did it. I don't know why I'm thinking about this like idea of a guy, like a philosopher, using a real ass guy and making up things for him to say in his writing. I don't know why I think of that. My immediate thought is like, oh, so like the modern equivalent is like fucking political comics in the editorials of a newspaper.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same intellectual tradition. It's having a straw man and then being able to just have them contradict each other. And
Aristotle would have loved the FDR train.
Dude, he would have drawn him as a cartoon duck who smirks at the camera and says,
fuck,
like, political opinion bad, huh? Honestly, Plato kind of does that. Like, one of his most famous works is The Republic, where he talks about, like, well, based on my knowledge of philosophy, here's how I think the ideal society would work. And his ideal society is Atlantis. Right? It's
right.
This beautiful, perfect society. And Ollie, do you want to know what Plato's opinion of what the perfect society is?
Yes, I do.
It's one run by philosophers.
Of course it is.
Yeah, you have to be a philosopher. And if only society was ran by philosophers, everything would be perfect. It's awesome. It's so good. We've never gotten past that. Like, political philosophy has literally never evolved past that.
So is this is a bit of a tangent, but is the sort of like, I guess it's not really widespread nowadays, but is the sort of cultural belief in Atlantis as like a mythological place, like stemming from a misunderstanding of this fucking book?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, and part of it, like, part of what makes that less just mythology is that Atlantis was probably a veiled reference to a Greek island state that actually did exist and then got, like, swallowed by the waves because of a big earthquake, because that shit happened all the time in ancient Greece. So it's very easy to be like, no, it was real, and I know about it. I talked to an angel, and he showed me Atlantis. Like, that's the people have been doing that for the entirety of Western philosophy.
They literally had power crystals, and Disney was onto it. That's why I'd really like you to buy this $70 block of rare quartz.
Dude,
I've decided it's rare.
It's actually an ancient computer, and it has an ancient, like, it has an Atlantean cephalon in it, and I can communicate it through light language.
It's that easy.
It's that easy.
This 1999 shit would have been easier if they just went to Atlantis instead.
Dude, they don't have any Lemurian power crystals. Are they stupid?
This entire society collapsed under the waves because they had not yet been able to master Orgone energy accumulation.
Yup. I was talking about it on Tumblr a couple days ago, but have you heard of the Tartaria myth?
No.
So it's a theory that a lot of these famous buildings, like the Parthenon, the Kremlin, like all these big churches in Spain, are actually just the top floors of significantly larger structures that extend like 200 floors down into the earth. And they are the remnants of the Empire of Tartaria, or Taracia, however you want to pronounce that.
Oh
which
my
was
God.
catastrophically swallowed by a colossal mud flood. It's all buried, and it's all being covered up. They're not letting you dig into the bottom floors of the Parthenon because of woke or something. And
That's so sad that they take my pick and shovel to this like ancient cultural heritage site. What's the matter with them? Do they hate truth and reason?
Who knows? That's the thing with conspiracy theories. It's like, why would anyone do this? Literally, why would anyone do this? And the answers range from the silly to the anti-Semitic.
Uh-huh.
But one of my favorite things about the Tartaria myth is like, well, if it was covered in a mud flood, where'd all the mud come from? Mud mountains. There were giant mud mountains.
Right.
That collapsed because of the mud flood. Because the main power source of the Thracian Empire was telluric, meaning having to do with the movement of the seismic currents under the earth. They had earthquake crystals that powered their entire society, and they had like an earthquake crystal meltdown, and that destroyed the giant mud mountains that don't exist anymore. And that's what buried the empire.
That's what they get for making earthquake crystals. You get an earthquake.
Are they stupid?
It's quite sad. They should have made, like, I don't know, happy baby animal crystals instead.
Dude,
I feel like that'd be a much easier calamity to deal with.
Why didn't
you get
they
some
power...
hay?
It's very silly. They should have powered their entire society with one duck that ate peas.
Literally, it would have
really
solved
cute.
a lot of issues.
It would have been really cute and awesome if they had that. They would have put it in the Parthenon, and it would have powered everything, and it would have been great.
They would have gone to, like, their symposiums to decide on, like, new laws, and there would be no conflict for them to have to resolve, because, like, all of society would be looking on their advanced projector screens that they have in these ancient societies. And they would see one baby duck, and they'd go, "Aww.
Aww.
Aww."
And then that would power everything, and it would be beautiful.
It would work.
Yes, a lot of the like lost continent theories and stuff that you see in conspiracy culture and mythology and fiction, they stem from the myth of Atlantis, which goes back to Plato's perfect society that's run by philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't anyone think of that? It would have been perfect.
If they had just followed simple math proofs.
Well, no, Plato didn't even do math proofs. He would just, like...
Oh, no, I'm not saying that is. Anytime I think of shit like that, I just think of Time Cube is all.
Oh, yes. Well, see, Time Cube would be Aristotle, because it has, like, weird
Ah.
logic. Because, okay, I've been talking about Aristotle as being the math guy, but if you look at what Aristotle actually wrote in his dictionaries, it's like, we all know that ants have 4 legs and are impregnated by the eastern wind.
Right.
This is known. Everyone knows this. Don't contradict me.
This is fact.
It is fact. We all know that the shapes of the Greek letters came from philosophers watching the movement of swans as they migrated from northern Africa here to Greece.
Right.
This is known. We all know this. So
My favorite fucking thing throughout all of history is, like, coming up with some shit that, like, with modern knowledge is blatantly not true, and then just following it with, like, this is known.
it is known.
I'll
by
know
philosophy.
this.
The wise know this. It is known amongst the wise. That's part of why I really like early Christianity. There's a lot of that energy in it.
Mm-hmm.
St. Augustine, who is basically the guy who wrote down the rules for what would eventually become early Christendom. A lot of it was him collecting all these ancient dictionaries, and a lot of it was Aristotle. And so he has some really cool shit about, like, we know that magic is real. Everyone understands this. But
Right.
how does it work? Well, it's actually demons doing all of that. If you ever see somebody doing magic, it's because demons are doing that. How can demons do that? I hear you ask, oh dear St. Augustine. Well, they're really fast. And they're so fast you can't see them move, and they have bodies kind of like smoke. So really fast demon smoke is what makes all magic happen.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's actually one of my favorite things about, like, magic early on, like the concept of magic isn't really written about all that much in early Christianity, partially because you wade into heretical territory if you do it too much.
Sure.
But there's a bit in the Bible, in Egypt, where I believe it's Moses is in the court of the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh's like, oh ha ha ha! If your god is so epic and cool, why don't we have one of my magicians go up against your god? And the magician, like, does some cool magic trick, I forget what it is, and then Moses is like, check out this cool shit, and he turns his staff into a snake, and it, like, eats the snake that the Pharaoh's magicians produced, thus proving the superiority of Hashem over Egyptian magic.
That's why fucking clerics in the D&D beat 'em up use sticks to snakes as a spell.
Yup.
And it's one of the best moves in that game.
That's cool. I didn't wait, is it actually a beat 'em up?
I'm like 90% sure it's a beat 'em up, and I'm remembering the right thing.
Ah.
It was like an old Capcom or Konami arcade title that got like the D&D official license, I think.
Oh, I've heard of this, yes! You're playing with the big boys now. Yes, that exact scene from Prince of Egypt. By the power of Ra! That song goes hard. It's awesome. But the important thing theologically about that being in the Bible is that it acknowledges that magic is real and is like a threat. Like, there are people on Earth who can do magic without, like, being pledged to Hashem, like, without believing in God. Like, there are people who can do magic, so how do you explain that as a Christian? Because people who believed in magic were a significant theological rival. Like, that was who... That... Magic was the XQC to the rising Kai Cenat of Judaism, as it were.
Oh my god.
I'm mad at myself that I made that analogy. But they were competing for followers. It's that exact sort of thing. So you had to, you needed to have theological justifications for why, was magic real, but was Hashem-based magic just better? Or was all magic fake, and actually you can't do anything miraculous unless you believe in Jesus? And generally the Jewish interpretation is, like, Yeah, there are other gods, and you can believe in them, but it's like we picked this one, and we gotta follow Hashem's rules. Like there's Baal and Beleth and all that other shit, but we picked Hashem, and he's the one true God, and we're gonna follow his law. And doesn't really matter what the other divinities are. If they might be demons, they might not. Like they might be some separate third category. What exactly they are theologically is not super important because we all signed the contract to follow this guy, right? That's not how Christianity sees it. Christianity is like, no. There's one God. All these other demons are fundamentally subservient to Christ. And if you believe in Christ enough, you can command demons to do what you want. And Augustine wrote that, whereas like, actually, Christ is more powerful than all demons, and he has a shield that blocks all damage, and he dodged every attack. And he's more powerful than every demon on Earth.
Right, he had a force field.
He had a force field. He had a theological force field because he's Jesus Christ. And so no demon can be more powerful than him. And that was kind of a theological band-aid solution for Christianity because unfortunately it opened the door to being able to say, oh no, I believe in Christ, so I can like command demons and like do spells and magic and shit. And if Augustine saw that, he would have been like, no, you can't do that. But
not cool at all, man.
Nope. By the period of Second Temple Judaism, it was generally believed that God was in fact the only God. Yes, it was like once you got into rabbinical Judaism, it was like, no, this is our only guy. All the other ones are Jewish demons. They're shadim. Your part luck is kind of insane. I already have most of the parts. I don't even need them. I've been grinding a lot. It's a really good thing to do with my hands.
That's how they get you.
Yup. That's one of the most interesting things about, like, what exactly the definition of magic is in the Bible, is that you kinda sorta have to acknowledge that magic is real, and if you care about citing your church fathers, you can totally be a wizard within Christianity. Like, the church might get mad at you for doing that, but you can make a pretty solid theological argument that you're allowed to be a wizard within Christianity, as long as you believe in Christ. Need water.
Drain.
That was actually John Dee's whole... that was his whole deal for, like, why he thought talking to angels and, like, doing very explicit magic shit was, like, okay for 15th century England. Was he was like...
Wait, who is this?
John Dee.
Oh, I thought you said John Deere and got very confused.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, tractors are actually angels.
The tractor guy was alive in the 15th century and had some theological thoughts that changed the world.
It is, like, the more you study this stuff, the more is like, wait, what was invented by a wizard? What do you mean toxicology was invented by a wizard? The idea...
See, a bunch of that stuff makes sense to me, since, like, a bunch of the fucking wizards and witches, is we call them nowadays, or whatever, where people, like, fucking around with plants and shit.
Yeah. Especially, like, once you hit the 15th century. Like, it's really funny, the innovations that Paracelsus made onto, like, basically inventing modern medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Was, like... For the time, being a guy who diagnosed what was wrong with you, the guy who knew how medicine worked, and the guy who did surgery were all different guys. Like, if you were a physician, a guy who diagnosed people, that was... You went to college. You went to doctor school to figure out what was wrong with people. You studied anatomy, you read a bunch of expensive books. But if people came to your clinic, you didn't, like... touch them. That was icky, right? You were just like, you kind of looked at them and went like, yeah, your humors are fucked up. I'm gonna write you a long list of ingredients that you need to take to a pharmacist. And the pharmacist would be like, or what's the wasn't a pharmacist. There's like a 15th century word for the guy, an apothecary. You'd go to the apothecary, and he'd be like, "Oh, okay, you have a prescription here for a poultice of warming herbs that will balance your black bile. Well, that means that you're gonna need one of each of these like 100 different herbs that I sell, and it's gonna be real expensive for you."
Yup.
And if you needed surgery, like if you needed an abscess cut or something, that was a surgeon. And those guys were treated like dirt. Like anyone could be a surgeon. And
You must go see the barber.
yup. And Paracelsus was actually a bit of an innovator in that he was all three of them at once. He's like, hey, I'm actually going to figure out what's wrong with you, and I'm not going to overcharge you. It's like, how about we just put some cloves and cinnamon in wine, and that might cure you. Who knows? And also, I'm going to be the guy who does surgery on you.
Wait, hey, radical new idea. What if I just helped you?
What if I just helped you? Oh my god. There's a great passage in the book I was reading about Paracelsus where they talked about, like, you know, the cure for a gunshot wound, like a musket wound back then, was making a poultice out of feathers and cow dung. And then putting that on an open, gaping musket wound. And doctors at the time had no idea what to do. They were like, why do people keep dying? We balance their humors. Why do they keep dying? Who knows what could happen? And Paracelsus was like...
We refilled them with black bile. Why are they getting sepsis?
Why are they dying in like 30 minutes of a terrible fever and sepsis?
Oh no!
And these are like early arquebuses. Like, these aren't even muskets anymore. They don't even have triggers. You have to put a lit match into a big bowl of gunpowder and hope it doesn't blow your hand off. And it shoots a tennis ball-sized man cannon round at you. And it puts a basketball-sized hole in a man. And so they're like, I've got just the thing. Go to that farm. Give me a shovel. Not eligible due to inactivity? What does that mean? I was active as fuck.
That happens sometimes.
All right.
It's a weird false flag every now and then.
Oh, okay. And Paracelsus was like, how about we keep the wound clean and put a bandage on it, and then just, like, let the body rest and let the body do its natural healing. And that saved, like, hundreds of lives.
Weird.
But at the same time, he was also like, why don't we use cutting-edge alchemical science to make medicines for people? Which is a good idea. Like, using cutting-edge science for pharmacology is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, cutting-edge alchemical techniques involved a lot of, like, aerosolized mercury and lead. So it definitely also poisoned people.
Maybe a little.
Although he did develop the idea that different people might need different doses of the same medicine. He has a whole passage where he talks about an experiment he did where he gave the same dosage of the same medicine to a guy, a horse, and a small cat. And he is like, listen, it did nothing to the horse, it healed the guy, and it killed the cat, so obviously something is happening here. No one has tried this yet. It is always kind of wild seeing what people are like. Like, okay. A lot of the interesting things about doing this, reading about all this stuff, is like, there's a lot of things that I consider completely common sense. Like, of course, it's like anyone could come up with this. It's like, no, they had to think about this for like 1,000 years before people really nailed this one down. That's always kind of...
Anyone can think of it nowadays because other people have already thought of it.
Mm-hmm. It's always kind of intellectually humbling. It reminds you of, like, what do I think is, like, common sense that people in 500 years are going to be like, you fucking idiot, you didn't know anything.
These motherfuckers were out here, like, building sewage systems and water treatment facilities. They didn't even know about the poop recycler.
They didn't know about the machine that turns poop into energy.
Exactly.
Speaking of the Republic, They were Plato is like, they had advanced, amazing technology, far beyond anything that we could conceive of. You know what it was? They had aqueducts that were really good.
Fuck.
Dude, their irrigation was crazy. Because that was the craziest technology they had for the time. And it's like, dude, we built a bridge that moves water, and we can now feed, like, 10,000 more people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that makes sense. I see why you think that's the craziest thing ever. Irrigation is still super important.
It's like the era of, like, Star Trek getting made, and it's like, yeah, we've got, like, supercomputers that are doing all these, like, incredible calculations in real life that are, like, massive and take up, like, the size of entire rooms and need, like, gigatons of energy to power. And then it's like, well, let's imagine the wonderful future where everything is beautiful now, and we live in a utopia, and now we have computers that fit in the palm of your hand, and we have bigger ones that power, like, entire boats that go through the sky.
And you know what we still also have? Irrigation. That shit's still important. Yep. And they came up with that shit like 3,000 years ago, and I don't know shit about irrigation.
So you have to get the water wet, but not too wet. That'll cause a problem. We call this the blight.
Oh, wet blight. Of course. Everyone knows this. The Atlanteans have this solved. They could cure wet blight super easily.
It was quite easy for them because they were good at it.
Maybe astrologers would love computers. They were kind of building computers. Like, talk about the fucking Antikytheria mechanism. They had, like...
Oh, my girl. My baby girl.
Yup. We were talking about that the other night. Source, it is known. It's important. Like, astrology was really useful for knowing when to plant your beans or whatever. That shit's super important. You learn anything about irrigation, Roman Polanski shows up in a zoot suit and slits your nose. Yup. What was that mechanism? It was, we don't know for sure, James, but the Antikytheria mechanism was probably an astrological calculator. It was probably like a bunch of dials that allowed you to calculate what the sky would look like at a given date. It was most likely an early mechanical computer. But like a very, very simple one. Like maybe 3 or 4 moving parts at most.
Yeah, I think some people hear about the Antikytheria mechanism being an early computer, and their concept of computer is like, you know, the modern day computer. That's like the do-it-all machine with, like, you know, graphics and audio. But like, a computer is just by definition a thing what computes. It calculates.
Mm-hmm.
It's the numbers machine. It's all numbers in the end.
It's a thing that has memory and can edit that memory.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the Antikytheria mechanism is the dial of destiny, and it's actually a time travel device, and it was used for ancient satellites.
If only we understood simple math truths.
Don't diminish my girl. She's got complex parts. I mean, compared to like a silicon circuit board. Have some perspective here. Buckets of water flowing into each other could be a computer. It could. You can have a water-powered mechanical clock. It's a very common thing, actually.
Steam. Is an abacus with a series of levers a computer? Now, that's getting a little bit into the weeds of it, but it's certainly a calculator.
I don't know enough about, like, what defines a computer mathematically, but I'm sure that, like, you could make an abacus complex enough to be a computer. I don't know. I'm just saying shit.
I'm a little bit rusty on the theory of, like, what specifically a computer is, admittedly, so I'm not going to speak authoritatively on anything here.
I know what a Turing machine is, but I know that's a concept.
Right, it's the bus they use to get the Spice Girls around Europe.
Very good, very good. Ugh. This is helping me put together my thoughts. I gotta write about fucking ancient Greece for the book.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta
rubber ducking this shit. Let's go.
Yup. I gotta revisit the fucking... There's a source book by Daniel Ogden called, like, Witches, Ghosts, and Spirits in the Ancient Greek World that has, like, a list of every time that magic was ever mentioned in all of classical Greek literature and philosophy. It's like one of the most useful documents I've ever seen. That's where I learned about snake blasting, Chaldean snake blasting.
Now what in the hell is that?
There was it was like some account of a Chaldean mage who was trying to rid a field of pests. So he like goes to the field and then he speaks in the language of beasts, like, beasts, come to me, like, flee this field. And then they're like, yeah, man, what's up? And they all come out of the field and like gather around him, and he's like, boo! And he like breathes fire and explodes them all, except for one snake, which he says, like, I know that in this field there is an elderly deaf snake. I need you to go into the field and fetch that deaf elderly snake and tell him to come here. And then the snake goes. He brings the elderly deaf snake back, and he's like, boo! And then he explodes it with fire breath.
Awesome.
The literal translation is, and then he blasted the snake.
Wonderful tales from one of history's greatest jackasses.
The Chaldean snake blaster. What an asshole. Yeah, no, it's
Honestly.
a dick move. Go get that old, weak, feeble snake and kill him too. That was like a lot of like pre-Socratic magic. Is like if you lined up every spell ever written down by a person, like half of them are related to crops. Super important. You gotta, especially in ancient Mesopotamia, if you were a Chaldean, your main spiritual concern was literal demons, which were known as locusts and rats and pest animals and whatnot. Like, they were... You know how some fantasy universes are like, some animals are just ontologically evil, like they are a stain on reality and they're only here to cause problems. They don't exist within an ecosystem and they don't provide nutrients to anything. There's just some animals are evil.
Right.
That's what a lot of like Mesopotamian magic was for. It was like, no, there's... Pest control is something a priest has to do. Locusts are literal demons, and you need to know spells to kill them properly. And a big thing that the Asipu, the Akkadian priest class would do, is they would construct intricate herbal, like, suffumigations. Like, they would just put a bunch of herbs in a pot, and then they would wander around fields fumigating crops, literally to purge the demons from them.
My smell will solve this.
It will. That's actually where we get the frankincense and myrrh shit. It comes from that intellectual tradition.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's actually, like, I believe, like, either frankincense or myrrh. Like, one of them is an expectorant. Like, it makes you sneeze, and so it's really common with, like, healers. And one of them was a... I forget what it is, but it dries things out, and it's used in, like, mummifications and, like, preparing bodies for death. Like, that's what myrrh is for, or something. And so the two herbs together represent, like, Christ's nature as a healer and his conquering of death, respectively. And also they're expensive and cool things to give a baby.
They are pretty cool to give a baby, you have to admit. They gave him a lump of Frankenstein in gold.
So he could pay Frankenstein for showing up.
Wait. Honestly, a genius move on the part of those men. They really were wise.
They super were. And they were Magi, which is where we get the term magic from, which is whatever the Persian magi were doing.
Ah.
That's where magic comes from.
I was always curious about the etymology of those two and which one came from the other.
Yeah, it was... Because I believe in the original language, I forget which, like, Near East language it was, but it's like Magi or Magoi. It just means, like, wise men or, like, wise people. And then once the Greeks showed up, it was like, oh, there's these, like, foreign priests and called the Magi, and the shit they do is also, I don't know, like Magos. And therefore, that definition is like, if you were, it didn't matter if you were actually a Magi, if you were a foreign priest, and whatever you did, it's also, you're also doing magic. It's also the same shit. It's all just weird foreign bullshit. And that's basically where we get the term magic from. Yeah. Magic comes from a hole in the ground. It does. In ancient Greece, it definitely does. The subterranean world is what produces all magic. I remember reading this thing about, there was a mystic in ancient Greece somewhere who, like, it was a big thing for mystics to live in caves, right? Because it's
Right.
more connected to the subterranean world, the world of the unconscious, the hidden, the mysterious. And what you would do is you would go into his cave, and it was super dark. It was famous for being one of the darkest caves in the ancient Mediterranean. And at the very bottom, there was a really small cave that you couldn't really get through. Like, you would have to get down on your belly to get into it. And you would stand there. Like, the people outside the cave would be like, if you want to have a mystical experience, go into this cave. And then go all the way down to the bottom and then just stand there. And the mystic will give you an experience. And so you'd stand there at the bottom of the cave for like an hour. You know, you'd wait a long time until the anxiety starts to build. And then the mystic would grab your ankles and drag you into the second room of the cave, like on your belly. Like really fast. He would like abduct you. And it was supposed to be like really scary, and then he would drag you into the other cave, and then he would like give you drugs so you had a bad trip. And then as you were coming down from it, he would like whisper mystic truths to you. So as you're coming out of it, you're like, I'm learning so much shit about the universe. It's so beautiful that it's not scary in here anymore. And then he would like light candles and shit. And he would go like, ooga booga. Everything's scary. Actually, you're wiser now. And it's beautiful. I fucking love ancient Greece, like ancient Greek mystery cults. Like the one of the big ones, I forget what it was. The one with the Kikeon, the wheat festival. I know someone in chat knows what it is, and they're gonna say it, and I'm gonna scream like a gibbon once I remember the name of it. But it was like a festival that everyone in Athens would go do this. Everyone would do it at least once. Yes, the Eleusinian Mysteries, that's the one. Where it was like a week-long event where you would have like a party and you'd play music and you'd all go on this big march to the Temple of Eleusis. And outside of it, you would have like, you know, you'd fast for 2 days, and then you'd feast for 2 days, and you'd fast for 2 days and feast for 2 days. And then you would get led inside where nobody could see, and they would shut all the doors. And nobody really knows what would happen on the inside. But what probably happened is they would give you this drink made of fermented wheat products or something that would induce like a crazy, unpleasant trip. Famous for being just like a debilitatingly bad trip. And then they would perform sacred plays with people in scary masks that, like, usually I believe it was the Orphic myth of like Orpheus going to the underworld and like learning things and then returning to the world of light. And they would wear like scary masks, and while you were tripping and like starving and exhausted after 2 days of cyclical partying, like your body's frayed and your experience of reality is not really solid anymore.
Right.
Like they would like put the masks on you and be like, you have to be, it's your turn to be Orpheus now. You have to be in the play. And then when your brain was at its like most frayed, you would be like, I'm literally Orpheus right now. And I'm actually, it's happening to me. It's real.
It was always real, boy. Drink more drink.
Drink more of my evil wheat drink.
You're dehydrated. Have another sip. It will save you, Orpheus.
Now go perform this cool play. We work bacchanal retreats. That's what they do. That's what fucking ayahuasca retreats are. It's like, oh, I know you have a stressful job, like working at a startup or something. Let's go into the desert and like just have a bad trip and puke your guts out with a guy pretending to be a Mexican shaman. It's awesome. I think it's really funny that people in Silicon Valley do that.
Uh-huh.
Yup. Like, I love the Eleusinian Mysteries because it's like, it sounds awful. It sounds truly awful and unpleasant. But then a little part of my brain is like, what if it fixed me a little bit? Like, what if it actually, like, makes you feel better? Because I think it would be a cathartic experience, at least. Like, it would be, like, coming out of that would be like, maybe I am a new person. Maybe I was, like, metaphorically and spiritually, like, rebirthed by having a bad trip and performing in a secret play. That is the thing, yeah. And if you ever told anyone what happened in, like, within the temple, it was, like, punishable by death. Like, you had to keep the mystery a secret. It was that important. And they did kill people for it. Like, it was taken very seriously.
Awesome.
Who was the guy who, like... Because it was the Vestal Virgins were the keepers of the records in Rome. And if you saw their rituals, it was punishable by death. And there was some guy who, like, intruded upon the rituals of the Vestal Virgins, and they were in, like, a crazy drugged up ritual trance. And when they saw him, they knew that he wasn't allowed to be there, and so they attacked him and ripped out his eyes.
Oh.
Yeah. I forget who the fuck that was. Someone knows it in chat. Mystery cults are awesome. We totally need to bring them. It's like, imagine if the guy in charge of, like, the IRS did that. Like, and if you walked into the IRS building on the wrong day when the virgins were doing their secret ritual, they were allowed to kill you and eat you. I think government
That's gonna happen to me any day because I have an anxiety disorder.
That is kind of what it's like.
Except it's like at the grocery store.
Right. If I buy lemons wrong, they're gonna rip out my eyes. This is a real
The woman,
threat.
like, working the produce aisle and, like, making sure the little sprinklers are working is in the middle of a damn bad ritual, and if I walk in because I want to buy asparagus, like, that's it for my liver.
Right. They're gonna set the damn eagles upon you.
Again, sick of it.
You dare ask me questions while I'm restocking the produce aisle? Eagle, go! Fuck.
And, like, what do you... There's no counterplay to that.
Right. It's +8 on block.
It drains my meter.
Dude, it has chip damage. There's literally no counter to this. Aren't you
Aristotle had an insane footsies game.
Oh, man. Like, forever ago, when I was still, like, doing amateur game dev as a hobby, I wanted to make like a philosopher fighting game. I think that would be really fun.
It would be good.
But I don't know how to make games or how to balance a fighting game at all. And I don't even really like fighting games all that much.
Look, if the fucking doujin scene is, like, alive and thriving out there, if someone can make a fucking Les Miserables fighting game, then you can make an Ancient Philosophers one.
That is very true.
It doesn't even have to be good. There's a large and thriving community of people that love earnestly shit games.
I've seen Mugen. I've seen the shit that people are doing with Mugen.
Oh, yeah. You can have, like, El Hermano de Ronald McDonald fight, like, I don't know, Peter Griffin 2.
That'd be pretty cool. That should happen.
And then you use your assist to make, like, Prime Minister John A. McDonald come out and help you. It's fine.
Really
you can do
awesome.
that.
The Philosopher Football sketch from Monty Python. Yeah, that shit's pretty cool. I don't know. The thing I really like... The thing that always interests me about reading, especially older, weirder philosophy, is, like, they always have very interesting ideas about how you get knowledge. Like, the whole shit about, you can't just tell someone something. Like, if you learn anything, a god is involved in that. Like, And okay, when Socrates talks about like divine inspiration, I think he references a specific feeling. Like, you ever been like trying to learn something kind of complicated, and there's a moment when it kind of clicks, and you're like, I get it now. The knowledge is in my head, and it feels like something has changed. I'm different now. I think Socrates, in referencing that feeling, I think that's what he's describing when he says divine intervention. Whenever that happens to you, according to Socrates, a god has reached into your brain and, like, given you a piece of true Platonic wisdom. That's so cool. I love that so much.
What an interesting way of, like, describing that sensation.
It's interesting because, like, even in ancient Greece, like, describing it as one of the gods can have religious connotations that weren't necessarily intended, because when people say, like, oh, it's one of the gods doing that, most people's ideas, especially most people listening to this stream, are gonna have, like, a very, monotheist interpretation of that, of, like, what a god is and what it means and, like, how much agency they have in the world. Wherein ancient Greek gods were very much seen as, like, it wasn't, like, a wholly, utterly transcendent being that is beyond everything. Like, they're not... It's not like a group of people sitting at a table looking at the universe like an ant farm. The gods are personifications of forces, right? It's like the god isn't, like... There isn't a god of war who added war to the universe. Like, everything related to war. War itself is the god, and Ares, like, the conception of Ares is just like a sticker we're putting on that. It's just like how we're representing that visually. Like, they're less transcendent, I think, than people might understand. I don't know if I'm making sense there.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so the thing that is reaching into your brain when you learn something, when you devote knowledge to Almighty Nous, isn't, like, it isn't a god being like, here you go, sport. It is knowledge itself deciding to move into you, which is cool. Or deciding to, like, show a part of herself, lift up her veil. There's I forget which philosopher said it, but he said, nature likes to hide. Like, all things are full of gods, and the gods like to hide for some reason. I don't ever think they really talk about why, but they do. The universe just likes to obscure itself from you. They're beholden to / a part of everything. It's more like they just are that thing. Like, the thing is the divinity.
Right, it's like the concept personified without it being like a separate, like a personification separate from the thing itself. It is the thing itself.
Yup. It's actually why, it always kind of annoys me when people talk about paganism. I mean, this is the most, like, bullshit thing for me to be mad at is, like, man, people who run witch blogs on Tumblr don't understand ancient Greek philosophy very well. It's like, yeah, fucking duh, dumbass. Like, it's like they're fucking fork found in kitchen. What are you expecting everyone to, like, have a philosophy degree? Don't be mean. Like, but it's like people talked about, like, there's this refrain of our gods aren't gumball machines. You don't just, like, give them prayer and then expect something out of it. Like, no, that's literally how they worked. Like you promised, you're like, I want to be safe when I'm traveling to Athens. Dear Hermes, clasps my hand together in prayer. I promise that if you keep me safe on my travels to Athens, then I'll build you a little shrine. And if you don't build the shrine, Hermes will be mad. That's literally how it works. And because you're not necessarily, like... But it's also not like a guy. Some ancient Greek people believed it was like a personification that you could interact with socially, but others were like, no, Apollo is the sun, like the literal object in the sky. That's Apollo. And yeah, he's related to music and stuff, but that physical thing that I'm pointing to with my finger, that is Apollo. And you could get into real serious arguments by saying, like, well, no, the sun, it's like the sun's just the sun. It's not necessarily a god. And my source for this is Socrates, and that's why they killed him. Because that was blasphemy. A lot of people were arguing that, like, saying the sun is just like an object and not literally Apollo, that could be considered heresy. Like, and this wasn't just like you're going against church law. It's like Apollo could be mad if you say that about him.
Bro, watch what you're saying. He's literally listening right now.
Music might stop working if you do that. The gods in prayer are supposed to be kind of practicing magic. Not really. Like, that question of, like, praying to the gods is considered magic in ancient Greece. That is so fraught. You could honestly write an entire book about that, because, like, ancient Greek people didn't have magic. They didn't refer to most things as magic. Like, magic was the thing that ancient foreign priests did. But there are a lot of things like wonder working and, like, spiritually, like Goetia, like the wailing at funerals to commune with the daemons of the dead. That wasn't referred to as magic, but it was one of the things that we now, today, would consider magic. And so there were a lot of interacting things that were considered magic or not magic. And it's like some practices were considered favorable to the gods and were more allowed, and others weren't and were considered heretical and less trustworthy. Like, it's a very complex ecosystem of social practices that is very difficult to flatten into modern ideas of what was or was not magic. Like, people talk about ancient Greek witches. They didn't have witches. They didn't have the word witch. They're, like, when people talk about ancient Greek witches, they're referring to, like, 5 different social practices that existed over a period of, like, 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very diverse historical period, but also flattening them all together and being like, nah, this is all magic, was also a thing that people did back then. Just like how people are like, no, all these people pretending to be Aristotle is just as important as studying actual Aristotle like 100 years later. Like, that also happened in the ancient world. Like, people like, there's this idea that, like, oh no, everyone back in the ancient world had, like, perfectly sensical, complementary, and logically internally consistent ideas about how the world worked. No, they were just as, like, they were doing just as much weird combination, like, misunderstanding bullshit as we were. That's why I love the Greek magical papyri. Because it's like, I mean, people got around in Greece. You know, so you see spells that are like, I invoke Apollo and Jesus and Jewish God and Thoth and a million and my dad and the ghost of my grandpa to...
Please, Dad!
People would do that. You would invoke the ghost of your dad.
I know you're out there somewhere, Pops.
True ancient Greek tradition, ignoring the distinctions between ancient Greek beliefs. That was the whole Mediterranean. People... You know what pisses me off is when people are like, oh no, it's like ancient Jewish culture would never have syncretized with other cultures. It's like, shut up. You don't know anything. There were literally, like, synagogues in northern Africa that have carvings of Apollo on the wall. Like, there was a gosh damn diaspora. They were all doing different shit. It's just as diverse and uncomplicated, like, just as diverse and complicated as every other religion in the ancient Mediterranean. Like, that makes... It's always like an appeal to, like... No, there was one real ancient Judaism, which means that I can have... now I get a temple blueprint. It's like there was one real, true ancient Judaism, which means that all of my opinions about Christianity are therefore built on a solid foundation, and there was no disagreement about anything in the ancient world. It's like,
You
nah.
have invented a brand new schism. It's the same as the old schism.
Oh man, there's 14 different schisms. I know. I'll create a new theology that syncretizes all of them. There are now 15 schisms.
See, this one is new and different because it's in the modern era, so like I can say words they didn't have back then, like internet.
Also, Holly, do you know who you're describing with that joke?
No, please tell me. I want to know.
Jesus. That's what Jesus was trying. Like the actual historical Christ. If you look at his actual writings, like what the actual historical Christ was trying to do, there was a big theological schism between two very different, diverging sects of what would eventually become Judaism. And a lot of what Christ was trying to do was to create a theology that both of them could participate in, thus healing the rift within the Roman, Syrian, Jewish diaspora. He was literally trying to be like, I've got a new version that will heal this rift. And, well, it didn't go too well. It didn't work too well.
No, it doesn't seem like it did, unfortunately.
No, not at all.
Well, at least his heart was in it.
Jesus was trying to create the USB-C of Judaism. He kind of was. Well, and what's funny is that, like, the two main branches of Judaism at the time that were fighting with each other, like I think it was like 4 branches of Judaism that were all fighting with each other. Like the main 3, like they all died out. But what eventually became rabbinical Judaism, the Pharisees, they were literally like, it was like a group of 1,000 Cohens that like got tired of the fighting and moved into Syria because they were like tired of arguing with everyone, and we're just like, nah, we just want to talk about the Bible all day and like debate what religious orthodoxy is in this new post-temple period. And that's what modern Judaism is like the guys who were like, ah, fuck this. It's like, I don't want to deal with this shit. Let's just fucking move to Syria. I don't give a shit. Love the theory that Jesus wasn't supposed to die and the rest of Christianity is cope. That's kind of real, though. Like, if you look at the writing of the church fathers, like, immediately after Jesus died, a lot of it is like, guys, what do we do? He fucking died. There's this... like, all of them agreed that, okay, the death of Christ, like the death of our big guy, is obviously very theologically significant, but basically no one agreed on what exactly that meant for Christianity. They're like, is he a ghost? Is he still... It's like, was he a ghost before, and now he's like... And it doesn't matter that he got killed, or... Was he alive? Is he still alive? Like, what does this mean theologically, like, for everyone? And that was the first 100 years of Christianity, was people just debating what in the hell the death of Christ actually meant for Christendom. And eventually they came to the opinion that, like, well, you know how it's like if everyone in the world sold all their debt to one guy, like all their credit card debt to one guy, and then we killed that guy.
There you go.
It was just...
Well, now the debt's gone.
It is. And we should all say thank you for that guy.
Thank you, Bezos.
Thank you, Bezos. We're doing that to you without your permission.
Thank you for agreeing to do this last night, which you did.
Guys, turn on the news. It doesn't matter what channel. Like, pull up YouTube on stream, and it's like 4 thumbnails of like PewDiePie pointing at a news feed of Jeff Bezos being crucified. Like, he did what?
Breaking news: now beloved ultra-billionaire is stranded in the sky in a balloon.
We're keeping him there forever until he becomes a mummy.
I like the idea that we specifically have to keep him up there until he desiccates. And this is for important financial and, like, theological reasons.
Something about global culture and the global financial system is like, this is the only way.
It all comes back to like fucking what's the word for like the craze that a bunch of like rich Europeans had where they were like buying and stealing mummies to like eat them and shit.
Oh yes, yeah. It was part of Egyptomania.
Egyptomania. I kept thinking it was Skullomania, but that's the guy from
That's
a fighting
awesome.
game.
That's cool, actually. It's Skullomania now. It's Mummy Skullomania.
It's Mummy Skullomania.
Although I'm friends with a couple Egyptologists who have given me long semi-drunken rants about how the mummy craze was significantly overblown, and it's like all those fun facts about like, did you know that the ancient European monarchy was eating mummies? It's like just not true, and it was probably like I don't know, Lombards lying about the English or something so that they could like I know I'm supposed to be a history poster, but I cannot fucking stand trying to keep track of all of the million little European wars, and it's like actually, in 1517, it wasn't the Duchy of Brabant yet. It was still the Dutch Republic. And I'm like, I don't care. Shut up. I hate keeping track of this. I don't care. You're all just Dutch to me. But they were obsessed with Egypt. They just weren't eating mummies. The Mumia pigment was supposed to mimic mummy colors. Yeah. They're like, oh man, you like mummies a lot? Well, we're going to make mummy paint so that you can paint all of your favorite things mummy colored.
Wait, huge. And what's it made out of?
Dust. I don't know. They found dust. Sorry.
Guys, we found dust!
One guy in a big suit is like, I have an idea. We can make money off of this.
My poor mother's attic, full to the brim with dust and cobwebs. Wait, I've heard wonderful news about what's going on in England.
Awesome. Apparently, like that whole Egyptomania thing was kicked off when Napoleon invaded Northern Africa, right? And in France, like, they talked about Egypt like how weebs in the U.S. talk about Japan sometimes,
Oh
where
my
it's
God.
like, this is a utopia. Like, it's the coolest place on Earth, and everyone is super nice and enlightened. Like, they're basically all French, which is the best thing that a person can be. Let's not kid
Basically.
ourselves. That's my favorite historical European thing, is like, whenever they love a foreign country, it's like, let's not kid ourselves, they're basically French. Like, like when the English were running India, and they were like learning new shit about Hinduism, they're like, the Brahmin caste are basically English.
Oh my God.
They're basically white. So when Napoleon's army showed up in Egypt, they like they saw all they were like, we want to see the pyramids, like, because this was this was a part of the world that the Islamic world had been fighting over for a good long while. And they were like, we want to see the pyramids, we want to see the sphinxes. And so like all these army guys take a day trip to go see the pyramids, and they're like old. And they're like, what the fuck, dude? This is bullshit. I hate this. Like they thought that the Egyptians had been like keeping them up the whole time.
Oh no.
They were like, this is a bunch of fucking old sandstone. This is a bunch of bullshit. I love that. It's so funny. But then they got back to France, where people were still obsessed with Egypt, and they were like, you were in the Foreign Legion and you got to go to Egypt? What was it like? And they were like, yeah, we met a sphinx and it was super cool. They blew me and sucked me off. It was super cool. Egypt is amazing. Just started lying.
It's like the complete opposite of when like tourists go to Paris for the first time.
Yeah, but it's like, imagine going to Paris, having like a really shitty time, and then when you get back to Chongqing or whatever, you're like, actually, it was the most amazing place on Earth, and I came back enlightened, and I'm writing a book about it now. Like that's what so many French people were doing back in the 1850s.
Oh my God.
That's why Joseph Smith said that the original golden plates were written in Reformed Egyptian. because everyone was like, well, that's where all magic and civilization comes from, is Egypt.
Right, of course.
It was funny. And then in the middle of him trying to start Mormonism, they actually figured out, like, they found the Rosetta Stone and figured out how to read hieroglyphics. And people were like, hang on, this isn't written in hieroglyphics. And he's like, it's a different dialect. Don't worry about it. It's reformed Egyptian. Don't worry about it. Like, you do not, in fact, gotta hand it to Joseph Smith, but that's a really funny move.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to pull a steamed ham. Dude, Joseph Smith's entire life is one big racist steamed hams.
That tracks.
Oh, man. I'm debating about how much I want to write about, like, ancient Egyptian magic in the book. Because a lot of it is, like, you got to go back kind of far to get anything super interesting, and you're going to talk about it in the... I'm going to talk about it in my section on the Greek magical papyri anyway. So, I at least want to give, like, a small overview of it. But it's also, like, very different. Like, there really isn't any... There's really no such thing as, like, Egyptian magic. It's like everything was kind of religious. Like, everything in... Also, it's like... Egypt existed for a very long time. And not all of what they thought about magic is super relevant to what I need to talk about. As interesting as it is. British pubs, the book TM. Yeah, I'm writing a damn book. Been doing it for like 3 years. I write books, by the way. Sometimes I post about it on Tumblr of like, yeah, I'm working on a book, and people are like, you're writing a book? Yeah, man, this is how I make money.
I'm like always kind of shocked when I see that so many other people are shocked.
It's I think at being an internet person, it's really easy to like overestimate how important you are to other people's lives.
Yeah.
It's like, to most people, you're like, it's like, to most people, I'm just a person who makes funny jokes on the internet. Most people don't really pay attention to, like, every single thing I post, and that's fine.
Yep.
That's a very normal and healthy way to interact with the internet. I don't expect people to be familiar with everything I've ever said. But I post about this shit, like, every single day, and some people are like,
Yep.
you write a book? It's like, yeah. Like, I'm not mad or anything, I'm just surprised. But also, it's probably indicative of the fact that you have a healthy internet consumption habits and you're not, like, obsessing over everything you're reading on fucking Tumblr of all places.
That's good. Healthy.
It's so cool how you got Holly Holotones from Where Do We Begin podcast for this. I didn't even invite Holly. Holly just showed up.
I invited my damn self.
Yeah.
My original plan was I was gonna like jump into the call and just start like snorting and grunting, but you were like in the middle of something and I didn't want to interrupt, so I just sat in like enraptured silence for a couple minutes listening like, wait, this is awesome.
You know what it was? I heard you taking a wet sip of your water. I was like, hang on. And I saw that your icon had been here for like 20 minutes. I was like, oh, hi. Hello,
nice
ma'am.
listen.
You're not allowed on my desk. Hi. You're not allowed on
get
my
on the desk. Walk on the keyboard. Nothing will happen.
Hi, my darling daughter. I love you so much. You know you're not allowed here.
Yes, start pushing the keys. Yes.
Yes, I love you too. You're very sweet. Darling
Eat
daughter.
the wires. Bite the wires. Punish the wires. Naughty wires.
She was biting my wires earlier. I was like,
Yes.
I had
Nothing will happen. Keep it up.
I had the pre-stream jitters, and I was like, is the audio balanced? Can chat hear me? Am I going to, like, blow out everyone's ears and make people tune out, and they're going to hate me, and then they're all going to unsubscribe from my Patreon, and they're going to throw bricks at me in the street?
Yep.
And, my headphones were almost yanked off of my head because Meki was trying to chew on my headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she's being very sweet. She was running around in circles earlier, and it was very cute.
Fuck yes. I have like the opposite sort of thing where it's like I like working under the assumption that no one is keeping up with like the things that I'm like working on and talking about and all that. And I take it to the other extreme where I like, because I'm shy, I don't really super like talking about like projects that I'm involved in very much.
Mm-hmm.
So then I get people going like, wait, oh my god, you were in this thing, you worked on this, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, actually. Smiles. That's so real, though. I have learned that I think if you talk about your projects too much on the internet, it becomes like a replacement for actually working on them. Like if you're working on a book or something you want to write, it's so easy to get caught up in talking about the character that you're definitely going to write. Mm-hmm. And then when it's over and people really like it or whatever, wait, I don't want to do this yet. Hang on. You know, you make a really good post and people are like, I love this character. You're like, ah, yes, I've done writing. I don't need to do anything else. And that is the devil. That is the evil devil, and he wants you to never work on anything good ever again. So I have been trying to not do that as much. But
it's like you spend all the time thinking to yourself like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do this thing and it's all going to be so good. And you spend like all that time like focused on, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to put it all together. It's going to be great, that you tricked your brain into thinking I've basically done it. And so when you have to actually go and do it, you're just like, well, this sucks. I've already done this in my brain.
Oh, I need plastids. Yup. And that is the devil. Like, it will prevent you from working on anything ever.
Yep.
It's bullshit and it's bad for you.
Yep.
Similar curse, posting a work in progress of a drawing you like, don't finish then, everyone already likes it, then your brain checks the I did it box. Yup! That's the one. I don't know. I published my first novel as a serial, it was a really good way to hone my craft, I think, because it's like, I could see the audience reaction every 1,000 words, constantly. It's like, I could get a sense for how the story was going over and how it was being received and what people were thinking about it. That was very useful as a person writing a novel for the first time. But also, I think it can kind of be a crutch where you're like, as long as the audience likes it, I can just change shit whenever. And it's very easy to get caught up in just pleasing an audience as like a dopamine injection, which is why I'm trying to force myself to make my next novel a murder mystery, because it's something I can't post in chunks. Like, I gotta actually plot out the whole thing and write the whole damn thing. I'm about 15,000 words into it so far, and I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah. That is the nicer devil talking. Yes. True. Ding.
Why did you just make a CinemaSin sting?
I was imagining it more as like I'm smiling into the camera and there's a little like and the smile is so radiant that it makes a little ding. You can see it. You can see it in your help.
It's working. It's working.
You can see it in your mind's eye.
I just see the counter going up because of the thing that the movie did arbitrarily.
Yay! Northern Lion had this devastating read about how continuously adjusting yourself to meet the desires of every one of your fans will eventually turn you into Mr. Beast. Maybe. It's like, I agree with the sentiment, but I don't think there's anything inside Mr. Beast. But
Blood,
yeah. Apparently he had a game
Sometimes oxygen, sometimes CO2.
Bone.
Likely bone. I think there's high odds. What about tar? Are we thinking tar?
I'd say like 60% chance of tar.
Probably not like a lot, even if we do meet those odds, but... No. The money's on the outside. That's the thing, is you get the money, you get rich, and then you never spend it. You never do anything with it. It's completely an externalized force that you have to amass and accrue because that's success.
it just creates a gravity well in reality, and you don't do anything with that.
We're gonna make a Dyson sphere.
Is this a new thing, not Emerald Seas? I'm quite excited to hear you're writing a murder mystery. Yeah, it's a new thing. It's like, I was getting kind of frustrated with Emerald Seas, because, like, just wasn't going the places I wanted to. The characters weren't developing fast enough. If I wanted to make it how I wanted, it would take me, like, twice as long as I had planned. And I didn't want to slog through a project I wasn't happy with. Like, that I already wasn't happy with. Like, my problem was I could see the version of it that I wanted it to be. I could see it in my brain, and I knew how to make it good, but it just would have taken me forever, and I feel like it would have been a huge waste of my and the audience's time. And that's okay. I'm happy with it as it is, but part of why I wanted to work on a murder mystery next was because it forces me to sit down and write out a plot that I am consistently paced and I'm happy with, right? That's the real test of writing a murder mystery, is knowing exactly how to pace things and reveal information to the audience at exactly the right time. So
Is this the... I'm not gonna say anything in particular. Is this the one idea that you, like, mentioned to me briefly a while ago?
It's possible. I know I had an idea for, like, a Gmod stream that was murder mystery.
No, not that. I don't want to say more than, like, vague things, so I don't want to give away the goat, I suppose.
Oh, no, you... Like, the murder mystery is chef-themed.
Yeah, the food thing.
Yes, that is probably it then.
I'm like super fucking excited to see more of that eventually.
I am too. This is my problem, is that as research for this, I've been real whodunit pilled and clue maxing recently. I've been reading like all of Agatha Christie. I rewatched all of Columbo. Like I've been revisiting a lot of my favorite mystery fiction, and I've been really, really wanting to write a detective character for a while, and unfortunately for me, the detective character that I have written for this is maybe my favorite character I have ever written in my entire career, and I can't talk about her, because I promised myself that I wouldn't do that, because it's a panacea, or a placebo for writing. But I'm very excited for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I read Umineko
Fuck yeah.
as research for this. You read that?
I still gotta read that.
It's interesting. I lost interest, like, I forget which arc it was, but it's like a really neat take on the genre. I don't want to spoil nothing. Food thing. Is this also in Amber Skies? Yes, it is. It is in the same universe. I don't know. I like writing. It's fun.
It's fun. I've like been trying to get back into like writing like really short stories just to get myself into the swing of it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the kind of thing I don't really ever like talking about it until I have something that's like actually done to show people, because again, it's the whole like, well, if you do the work of like, you know, talking about the idea to other people and just like refining the idea without actually putting any fucking pen to paper, then it's like, well, I just did it in my head. Why would I want to do it again?
I think you get like,
but it's,
you get like one or two
fun.
perverts you can talk to. You know, like you usually need like at least one or two people that you can refine an idea with, just bouncing ideas off. You just can't do it publicly, right? Not the audience. But that's good. I'm glad that you're getting back into writing.
And then I have the other thing where I'll like write a thing and I'll be like, you know, I'm pretty happy with this, or you know, it could be better, but at least it's done. And then I just like don't show it to anyone.
Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
right? It's like, for the longest time, I used to think it was like some sense of like, I don't know, shame or fear or whatever, and I realized no, it's not really that. I just like making a thing for myself.
I think it's especially the more you're in front of an audience for a living, the more important it is to like do shit that isn't in front of an audience. Like,
Yeah.
You gotta cordon off parts of your life to be like, okay, this one's just for me. It's like,
Yep.
I fucking love cooking. I don't talk about it like on my blog or streams or anything.
Right.
Because that's my hobby for me. I don't want to I don't want to constantly have to think about like posting every single one of my meals to generate content or some shit. It's like, nah, this is just for me.
Every now and then, I'll have people ask me if I'm gonna stream, like, a very specific game or, like, DLC for a game, and it's like, nah, that one's just for me. And people usually understand, which is good.
It's wise. It's very wise to do this. And important. Ugh. Water.
Reinforcements available. Do you choose to
I think something I'm glad I sort of figured out very quickly doing, like, creative work in this sort of sphere is, like, it would be relatively easy to try and, like, laser focus the, like, kind of things that I work on specifically to, like, hyper appeal to whatever I think my audience is, or, like, to the idea of, like, growing an audience. And I would, like, be super fucking miserable about it. It would be bad. And so it feels like much more gratifying to be able to go, like, I'm gonna make a thing. This thing is going to be what I want it to be, for better or for worse, and it's gonna be for me. And if you like it, well, that's cool.
Yup.
And if you don't, that's fine.
It's always interesting to balance what the audience desires with what you personally want to be making, because at the same time, it's like the audience are pigs and you owe them nothing, but also you owe them everything and you are nothing without them.
Yep.
One of the most interesting things about being a professional, like, performer creative. Okay.
It's a hard act to balance.
Yup. All right, here. We're going to take a quick stretch break, go pee, get yourself a snack, all that jazz. We'll be back in a second.
Yippee!
Yay!
I'm still here. Have I ever experienced Guilty Gear? Guilty Gear is a fairly well-known franchise, yes. I like watching fighting games. I'm not much for playing them myself, but I like watching them. Nicolas Cage does a one for me, one for them thing. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, I guess an example I can think of is, like, speaking from, like, personal experience, I suppose, when we did, like, you know, HLVR and that ended up exploding the way it did. And people were like, oh shit, this is, like, a thing that we know about now when we're gonna, like, watch the work that you do. And then we were like, okay, so let's, like, follow this up with other stuff. And I feel fairly confident in saying this because this is, like, echoing the sentiments of, like, my friends and fellow creatives that worked on these together. Where we did, like, the Half-Life Alyx stuff, and that kind of evolved into, like, oh yeah, this is something that's gonna, like, appeal to the people that were, like, super into, like, HLVR. And then we had the Breaking Bad idea, and that was like, people are probably going to be a little bit upset about some of the direction we're taking this, at least at first, but this is the one for us. This is the one that we want to do because this is an idea we're gripped by. Sort of thing.
Hello.
So it's fun to balance that. Hi.
Were you talking about, like, the Breaking Bad thing?
This in, like, broad strokes, the idea of, like, you know, doing creative work, and it's like, all right, here's one for them, here's one that's just for us, here's one for them, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's important to, like, especially if you have an idea like HLRVI or whatever. Like,
Yep.
that's an
HVAC.
HVAC. it's a really interesting concept that I don't know if many other people have like done stuff like that before. It can be important to experiment with the format like that, just see what you can do.
Yep. It's fun to fuck around with stuff, and 'cause that's what that was just fucking around with that.
Yeah. No, it's like that's part of how I discovered that, especially doing shit with the Meat Planet gang, is I love hosting game shows. It's like my favorite thing to do. I love writing game shows. I love participating in them. I love torturing people with questions and riddles and puzzles. I love doing that shit.
You're honestly obsessed with inflicting pain. It's wonderful.
I kind of am. Only if it's funny, though. I don't want it to be lasting. I have the cadence for game shows. I absolutely do. One of my favorite things growing up was Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. You ever heard of that, Holly?
Huh?
There's a in the States, there's a national public radio station, and every, I think, Saturday or Sunday for a while, they had a call-in game show where it was like complete the limerick about the news, or like all these like very silly kind of homey bits. Very wholesome program. Saturdays when it's recorded, Sundays just the taping. I see. But part of the whole bit with Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is that it's super low budget. Like, you don't win anything. Like, what you win from winning at Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is a random, like, they usually have these, like, huge celebrities on sometimes. But then they don't actually win anything. Like, a random caller gets picked, and then if the celebrity wins at Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, the caller gets a custom voicemail recorded by the host of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Like, I love how like quaint and shitty that reward is. It's so great.
That's cute.
God, I had an idea for when I want to bring back Quizardry at some point. I just don't have the time to. But I want to, you know how like in the early 2000s, every like kids PC game, if you beat it, like if you beat Pajama Sam, it would give you like a PDF of like, it's like, this is my certificate that I found all the socks. And there's like a big cartoon print button at the bottom. I really want to make something like that, but for like, I won Quizardry this week. Like you can print it out at home. I think that would be so much fun.
I would literally love to hang that on my wall and like smear stuff on it.
Why are you smearing stuff on it?
Because it'd be funny if it looks extra filthy for some reason.
It's really greasy and wet.
And it's never explained what was smeared on it. Just, oh, you know, I had to.
That's awesome. Ask James to help with it. I mean, I will do that when we're actually thinking about like production cycles and shit. Like, I want to finish my
with the
book
game
first.
show. I thought you meant the smearing.
Oh, so we'll think about your smearing in a bit, Holly. Don't jump the gun.
Aw, golly.
No, I need to finish the damn book first. That was basically why I had to stop doing that. It takes a while to write a single episode. It basically took me like a whole day out of my writing schedule every single week. Wait, I don't need to do this anymore. Fuck, what should I grind now? Let me go look at my relics. We should get Aya. We should grind a bunch of Aya.
Yep. Mirage Prime is in store again.
Oh, I have her cooking.
Yes.
Someone, like a rando, dropped an Octavia Prime chassis for me.
Huge.
Yeah, I've been looking for her for like a year. So she's cooking now. I've got Temple. I got Mirage Prime. MS Paint. Okay, my theory for this, like what I want to do is... Okay, Axie A12. Let's go do that. Let's do that first. Let's crack open the relic. My theory for this first was when my mom needs to make things for like a 4th grade class or something, she likes to make worksheets in MS Paint, or no, not in MS Paint, in Microsoft Word, in the Comic Sans font. Like, that's how she makes documents. I think I would want to do something like that. Disruption. It's the only Axie Fisher we have.
Speaking of fucking Comic Sans, I was like looking at movies to like watch sometime soon because I've been trying to watch more films. And I on a lark I pulled up the Warriors, like seminal 1979 work, The Warriors,
yes.
because I was thinking about like radio DJ hosts, and I was like, oh man, Nora Knight is so fucking cool. Wait, Nora Knight is them just doing a tribute to the fucking DJ from the Warriors. I should watch the fucking Warriors. And I pulled that up, and I had to stop the movie like during the intro. One, because I was fucking tired and I wasn't gonna watch it all anyways. I was about to go to bed. But two, I had to pause the fucking intro because they're framing it as like, yeah, here's like bits of the movie that are like a comic book, and the text is just in fucking Comic Sans.
That's awesome.
And it's like, well, this was 1979. Comic Sans did not have the gravitas that it has in this day and age. But, man, it takes you out of it right here and now.
Funny. Because, like, I'm sure it was supposed to look like a comic book for the time, but now it
Right.
just looks like the baby font. It looks like you have to fill out this form for your kindergartner.
It looks like someone's like sign they have for their local dentist business.
That's cute.
There were void fissures in the area.
Did you finish The Warriors? Did you finish watching The Warriors eventually?
No, not yet. This was literally last night.
Oh, I love how I love how people in the 80s thought gangs worked.
Yup.
It's so funny. The most over the top shit. Oh, right. I actually have to put the game on stream, right?
You do? That's weird.
Yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. Ugh. No, there's very few things that I have to do for the book. I really need to go back and... I really gotta go back and boost the Greco-Roman magic bit. I need to talk about Hermeticism. After I finish this section, it's probably only going to be about 6 pages. Like, just a real quick introduction. Frame is not on screen? Is it still here? I can see it. I can see it in OBS.
Maybe they're on delay.
It's there now? Okay, good. Like, you need to talk about Hermeticism, which would actually... That would be a good place to talk about Egyptian magic and the Mediterranean and whatnot. Then I need to introduce the medieval era, which is interesting, because, like, a lot of the shit that was actually from the medieval era was only really compiled in grimoires and then became popular in the Renaissance. So it'll probably be an opportunity to talk about, like, weirdo mystics and stuff. We could talk about Mechthilde of Magdeburg. All of her weird erotic Christian poetry that was also mysticism.
Your cat's writing that shit? That's weird.
That's who my kitty is named after. She's my favorite 13th century Dutch nun.
Respect.
I have a quesadilla. It's very good.
I got a case of the common cold, I tell ya.
Yup.
I don't actually. I just wanted to be included.
That's nice. I'm glad that you contributed.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm gonna get a sticker for this.
Everything okay? Yay!
Guys, it's okay.
Don't worry. Everything okay. Imagine a knife. Imagine a hiltless knife with no handle. Now put the blade back. Now put the handle back. Yay! Everything's okay. Yay!
Imagine 4 balls at the edge of a cliff. Someone moves them away because it's dangerous.
You
Yes!
explained that shit to us, and I still have no idea what you're talking about.
So the Zyborn clock is classics of old something awful. Where... So you know how Grover House was some dude like, yup, I'm gonna build a house. It's gonna be super easy.
Yes.
Zyborn clock was, dude, I'm gonna make a 300-hour RPG. It's gonna be so easy.
I see. Okay.
No one involved had, like, anything in the way of, like, tangible game development or like making art for games or writing for games experience. And so their really cool idea was to immediately be super ambitious and jump right off the deep end.
Many such cases.
So as you might be able to hazard a guess about, it didn't go anywhere. And they were so adamant about the stuff they were posting and sharing, like, no, this is gonna be like fucking great. This is gonna revolutionize gaming. And because it was, you know, something awful of the era, they all got laughed out of the fucking joint. Like, it was this convoluted plot about, like, a steampunk guy named Johnny Five Aces, or, like, maybe he was a supporting character. And it was, like, specifically some kind of, like, time travel plot. And they had their, like, cool RPG intro where, like, a wise old man is explaining to someone how, like, time and time travel works, and the analogy he has is like, all right,
war never changes. Here's the thesis of the world.
Right, and it's
imagine 4 balls at the edge of a cliff.
And like describing like it was some like really hokey thing that if you spend any time thinking about it, it's like that doesn't make any sense. Where it's like, you know, you have one of the balls and you move it off the edge of the cliff and it falls. So now ball number 2 is ball number 1. Ball number 3 is ball number 2. Ball number 4 is ball number 3. And ball number 1 becomes ball number 4. And then literally, like, says this weird analogy about, like, balls falling off a cliff, and somehow the balls are coming back on the edge of the cliff, and then just goes,
time works the same way.
And, like, the clock itself was, like, some sort of, like, egg, like, artifact that you could use to, like, manipulate time. So you know, in Warframe with, like, 99, and, like, they have the time travel thing, and Albrecht is like, oh, we have to watch out. The Indifference is watching the strands of Craw, and we have to, like, create this loop of love so that the Indifference will stay away and will protect this, like, timeline forever. So imagine that, but they try and over-explain everything so that they're like, no, it's not a mystery at all. It's actually quite simple.
Imagine 4 balls at the edge of a cliff. It's just like that.
Imagine 4 balls at the edge of a cliff.
I see. I like that a lot.
And so you'll get a bunch of things from, like, made by Something Awful alumni, such as Marble Hornets and Fallout New Vegas, both featuring references to the Zyborn clock.
That's awesome. Okay, I get it. I understand. Yay!
There's, like, so much more I could dig up. There was, like, other character concepts, and, like, they had some of maps drawn out, and, like, things like that. They never got especially far, especially given their idea was, let's make a giant video game, and then going, well, this shit'll be easy.
Everyone knows that game development is infamously easy and not time-consuming at all.
Right. Eternalism is literally so easy to understand. Right, it literally is, though. Imagine all events that could have happened. They have happened.
Oh.
All possibilities are real. All ideas have happened somewhere.
I see. Sorry.
What if the world was made of pudding? Pudding world is real now.
I was looking at a Grenier and I got distracted.
As you do. I do respect a lot of Warframe's, like, esoterica being treated as, like, oh no, this is just a known fact about the universe. This is known. In the era this was discovered, this is known. And then, like, all these years later, people are reckoning with it like, man, we don't fucking know how this works. What do you mean?
That's such a good way to do world building. Like, there's so many people that talk about, like, what makes for good world building. It's like, what you actually put in the world almost doesn't matter. Like, how your world works almost does not matter. It's how you present it to the audience and how the characters within the fiction treat that information.
Yep.
And I love how Warframe is like, yeah, a bunch of people discovered a bunch of shit a million years ago. We don't know how it works. Like, the average person in 2025 does not know anything about science. Like,
Right.
it always pisses me off when people are like, you go into your fantasy universe and every character seems to know literally everything about the history of the world and politics and how magic
I hate that
and
shit.
physics
It always takes me out of it.
so annoying. I'm like, when is the last time that you've talked to a complete stranger who seemed to be wearing like ballistic body armor, like an actual soldier who was clearly here on some sort of quest, and you're like, oh, you want to know about the government of our city? Yeah, I know every single city council member and every ongoing, like, political intrigue thing happening. It's like, no, that never happens. That has never happened. And I really like how Warframe is like, no, so yeah, there's a bunch of weird time travel shit and, like, the eldritch entities and love is actually the center. It's like, no. None of that shit matters right now. What matters is restoring the wetlands and riding hoverboards.
Right. All of this shit matters so much in, like, the narrative sense and, like, the story that it's presenting to you and, like, the thematics and the emotional elements of it. Like, the impacts those have. The universe building is, like, informing the story instead of the other way around. And then also it's like, well, alright, you want to get into the weeds of this? Well, the people that would be able to get into the weeds of this all died because they were in the fucking empire that sucked ass committing atrocities. So a bunch of child soldiers blew them up years ago. How many years ago? No one knows. Don't worry about it.
Time is kind of broken, actually, and we don't even know why.
Time works the same way. Why? Well, the only guy who knows is in the middle of, like, a gay martyrdom complex going to, like, the past and now going to another universe. So,
I fucking love the Orokin as villains in this. Like, everyone always writes their Forerunner race as like, we are a hyper advanced alien culture, but the Orokin are like, the torture chamber just isn't hitting like it used to. I'm so bored.
can we, like, reinvent some gazelles that went extinct so that we can put them in the hydraulic press? That might make me feel something again.
They're just like so. It's like, yeah, that's what it would be like if you were just alive for 10 million years and there was no consequences to killing anything.
Yep. I always think about the way one of my friends described
Dark
it.
Eldar were Americans.
Yep.
That's really good.
It's I always think about the way one of my friends describes, specifically when, like, Whispers in the Walls came out, and they were talking about Intrati, like, doing fucking experiments to try and, like, make the Void into a stupid servile animal instead of being, like, a dangerous alive threat. And so, like, sent just, like, a bunch of weird animals in there to pique its curiosity. And one of my friends was like, yeah, you know, they were just kind of throwing shit at the wall in that era. We took the world's last endangered panda and shot it into space to see what would happen.
Literally that post that's like feeding soda to a weak and sickly endangered bird just to see what happens. Yes, I'm playing Lavos Prime.
Maybe endangered species will have, like, a new reaction to soda, and then it turns out, no, soda has a violent new reaction to endangered species.
And the bird can talk now. We don't know why.
The bird now has opinions about soda that it is posting online. What do we do?
And none of this is actually important to what's happening in the plot.
Nope.
It's awesome. I love Warframe's world building and shit. It's so good.
I love it. I love it because they, like, keep shit, like, very open-ended, which, I think is really smart if you're, like, intending to work on, like, a fucking live product that you need to continuously build up and update over the years.
Yeah.
B, I don't know, I think mystery is just fun. I don't need something to, like, fucking walk out to me and be like, here is the moral of the story, here is what you just played meant, here is, like, the explanation of everything in the universe or whatever. Here is every single minutia of, like, what the Reapers are and why they're coming here to blow up the Commander Shepard.
Yes.
In fact, we have 3 codex entries for you about it.
I was gonna say Borderlands does that.
Does it?
Well, okay, Borderlands pulls a slightly similar trick where it's like, okay, you play Borderlands because it's the funny, like, boner fart shooting game. Like, it's the super immature, like, I just want to blow up people's heads with funny guns.
Right.
And then you do that, and it's like, your next quest is from, like, my name is Nine-Toed Wacko, and you need to go kill a bunch of motherfuckers for me. You're like, haha, all right, cool, I can do this. I have all of the tools I need to complete this task. And then you do it, and then Borderlands is like, it's actually pretty fucked up that you're killing people. You're like, come on! Just let me have fun! Stop trying to... It's like, actually, this villain is super deep and emotionally complex, and here's a million codex about how you should actually maybe feel bad about how the boner fart bandits are actually a little deep, if you think about it. I'm like, stop it, please. Stop trying to do this.
And, like, none of this is earned at all.
It's entirely unearned. Handsome Jack was, like... Handsome Jack was a good villain based purely on the vocal performance. Like, and I think they've been writing that ever since.
It was good vocals.
It was really good vocals. Borderlands 3 frustrates me because the idea of, like, who are we gonna have for the villains in Borderlands 3? How about a pair of evil Twitch streamers and the...
Is that what they are?
Yes! Okay, that's what they are. Like, that's genuinely a brilliant idea for a Borderlands villain, is two super annoying evil Twitch streamers that have a hyper-violent fandom cult. Like, that's hilarious. But it never comes up. And then the entire plot of Borderlands 3 is like, actually, one of them never knew her dad, and it's really sad. It's like, I don't care, just make them annoying shitheads. Video games are awesome, and I love playing them.
Yay!
Yay! James 7T is now in Borderlands 3.
I heard Borderlands 4 will have Borderlands 5 in it.
Whoa, that's pretty impressive, actually. You can fit 2 whole games in one game.
Whole
Whole.
games.
Donut-shaped game whole.
Time works the same way.
Is it that baffling? I don't know, I expect things from video games sometimes, especially if they're, like... Borderlands is such a comically easy franchise to write for, and it kind of makes me mad that they keep fumbling it. Like, they're not trying anything advanced here.
I guess I'm not terribly surprised, because I feel like that's kind of been Gearbox's MO forever.
Yeah, that part is on me.
It's like, hey, we have this idea that we want to execute on, and it's like, alright, let's see what you do, and then, like, in so many fundamental, deeply woven in ways, they're just, like, you know, fumbling the past constantly, and it's like, oh, alright.
Yeah.
I always think of, like, the Randy Pitchford quote where it's like, oh, you know, well, sometimes people just want to eat, like, a really greasy garbage hamburger, and it's like, no, I think what you've done is you've given me, like, a pile of loose meat on a bun and told me it's a burger.
Yeah, it's like, the thing about somebody who wants to eat a gross, greasy, like, fatty burger is there are burger techniques that you can use to make that and have it be good and satisfying and what the person wants. It's like, what you've kind of done here is just give us loose ingredients and then ask us to do the cooking. And you can't do that. I don't know. Writing anything is hard.
Yeah, I'll give him that.
And it's very easy to criticize, but also, like, there's no consequences for it. I can do it.
Right.
Get fucked,
Like,
Randy Pitchford.
I don't know. I know damn well I couldn't make a fucking video game as I am right now. That shit's fucking hard.
Right. Exactly.
But also, like, I don't know. I don't have to be, like, a professional chef to know that the restaurant is giving me food I don't like.
Criticism is easy, but mistakes can also be made.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay!
Ugh. It's been interesting, like, especially because my background is in fiction, like, trying to do pop history. I think it's seriously helped me grow as, like, just a writer in general. But I do miss writing fiction. I miss, like, I miss producing fiction shit for an audience. I'd like to go do more of that for a little bit once I'm done with all this.
Yeah. I kind of feel that, where like I feel really gratified like doing like creatively fulfilling work, and then like in the back of my head somewhere is a little voice like, oh man, but like what if I got really into the weeds about like something super technical again? That would be fun. What if I just got really into database admin right now?
Leave your wife, start a salsa company, move to LA, get really into data administration.
Abandoning my home and everyone that's ever known me and just going to work at a library somewhere.
There is a sense of, I don't know, occupational freedom that being an internet nomad creative gives you, where it's like, I could just leave one day. I could just stop doing this and no one would ever, I could just stop responding to DMs and no one would ever know what happened to me.
Yep.
And that voice is the devil.
Little bit, but let's just hear them out.
Yeah.
No. Let's just see where they're going with this.
There is
Wait, hang on.
a little bit of if shit sucks, hit the bricks, and you got to make sure that that voice is still in your head when you're doing creative stuff. But also, it's like, try to see things through.
Yep.
The stream's going so well, I can't imagine what'll happen once it starts.
It's starting soon. Stay tuned.
I forgot I had that on. Never mind.
Godot will be here any minute now.
He will be here.
Until our next appointment.
I once saw a production of Waiting for Godot where the person playing the lead pronounced it Godot in like a really on the nose way, and I was like, "Come on, man!"
Man,
like,
cut that out.
It's so funny though.
My dream, my genuine actual dream, number one in general, has been to like be in a production of Waiting for Godot. Number two, if I'm in it, I have to keep insisting that it's pronounced Godot.
We're waiting for Godot.
We're waiting for Godot.
Have the other actor get visibly angry at you, but not
Yes.
say anything.
The other actors, the director, the audience, they have to hate my fucking guts by the time we're through.
You can do that thing where the act, like, you take like a full second to respond to your lines, so none of the like the rhythm of the play is not choppy and fast. Like, you're just like, yeah, we're waiting for Godot.
Scratch my ass a little, sneeze in the middle of someone else's line.
You're clearly thinking about some other shit. Like, you're there waiting for Godot, but you don't care that much.
My fucking co-lead is in the middle of their monologue, and I'm just like slowly like putting my hand out for them to sniff. Like, does this smell weird?
The idea of during the production, like, you don't even say, does this smell weird? You're just kind of like slowly moving your hand under their nose.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing?
Just making an emphatic sniff noise at them, hoping they get it.
Hoping they get it. Like, no, like me. It's funny. I kind of hate Waiting for Godot. I don't think it's a good play. I don't like Samuel Beckett. Actually, that reminds me. Hang on. Have you ever heard like Vladimir Nabokov wrote, like, somebody gave him like a list of authors and then asked him to like say his opinions on all the different authors?
Uh-huh.
Samuel Beckett, author of lovely novellas and wretched plays.
Awesome.
He's such a cunt. It's so funny.
Let's go. I like Waiting for Godot, but I think it's literally the only Beckett work I've ever read.
It's the only Beckett play I've ever read, and I didn't like it. Where is it? Auden, W.H. Not familiar with his poetry, but his translations contain deplorable blunders. Jane Austen.
Awesome.
Great. Honor de Balzac. Mediocre. Fakes realism with easy platitudes. He's like so... Where's the one for... Where is it? Karl Marx. Loathe him. Ezra Pound, definitely second rate, a total fake, a venerable fraud.
Venerable fraud would go hard as like a tattoo on your chest.
In huge block letters.
Yep.
Oscar Wilde, rank moralist and didacticist, a favorite between the ages of 8 and 14, essentially a writer for very young people, romantic in the large sense.
Damn.
That's awesome. I love how much of a cunt he is.
You have to respect the haters while.
Fyodor Dostoevsky, dislike him, a cheap sensationalist, clumsy and vulgar, a prophet, a claptrap journalist, and a slapdash comedian. Some of his scenes are extraordinarily amusing. Nobody takes his reactionary journalism seriously. The Double, his best work, though an obvious and shameless imitation of Gogol's nose. The Brothers Karamazov, dislike it intensely. Crime and Punishment, dislike it intensely. Ghastly rigmarole.
Ghastly rigmarole!
He fucking hated Dostoevsky. It's like...
Oh, man.
I mean, Nabokov was also like a huge aristocratic elitist, but he was a liberal, and Dostoevsky is the most smug, like, elitist Russian conservative, so he fucking hated him. I recently read Lolita, and there's a bit where Humbert, who's like a terrible person, is described as reacting with something with a Dostoevskian grin, and I'm like, oh, if you know the lore, that's like a huge burn, but no one does. Like, translated into Nabokov language, that means, like, this was the most smug, shitty, like, conservative grin that you can do. But it's like, dude, nobody else has your opinions on Dostoevsky. He's, like, one of the most celebrated authors of all time.
It was as though he were the Grinch, the way he grinned.
Ernest Hemingway, a writer for boys, certainly better than Conrad, has at least a voice of his own. Nothing I would care to have written myself, in mentality and emotion, hopelessly juvenile. Loathe his works about bells, balls, and bowls. What does that mean, dog?
He wanted the alliteration. He needed it badly.
Nabokov does love his alliterations. Miguel de Cervantes, Don Quixote, a cruel and crude old book. It's like, what is your beef with Don Quixote? Like,
dude, he's tilting at this book, I tell you.
he's so mad. It's so funny. Bertolt Brecht, a non-entity, means absolutely nothing to me.
That one's good. That one has weight to it.
A non-entity.
Holy shit.
That's so funny.
Just imagine this entire list of like scathing critiques of like authors of the day or like authors of previous eras, and one of them is literally just
Beneath me. Next.
He says that. It's like Albert Camus, dislike him, second rate, ephemeral, puffed up, a non-entity, means absolutely nothing to me. Period. New sentence, awful. Period. It's so good. Arthur Conan Doyle, a favorite between the ages of 8 and 14, but no longer. Essentially a writer for very young people, romantic in the large sense. Oh, Theodore Dreiser, dislike him, a formidable mediocrity.
awesome.
I'm streaming. I should.
Oh shit, are we live?
Yeah, we're live. Hi, Variza.
What? So is this like a like a stream or?
Yeah. I'm supposed to like be funny in front of people who want to watch me.
That sounds stupid. Can we talk about like grass?
Grass is one of my favorite things to be outside and see.
Grass is honestly like number one in terms of plant, in terms of water. One of the greenest in terms of plants.
Were you ever into Mystery Science Theater 3000?
No, everyone always asks me if I was.
I ran a club for them, and they had back in high school, and they had what was it? It was like they had a new incarnation of it called Riff Tracks, and they did a riff thing for this old educational thing called At Your Fingertips Grass.
Awesome.
It was, I don't know what this thing was supposed to be, but it was like a 10-minute children's educational video about what grass is. And it starts with, is corn grass? Like, that's the first line of it. And then they never answer the question.
Think on this for the rest of your days.
And that's just, it's one of those line deliveries that I have never gotten out of my head. I think about it so often. And it's not even that funny.
Sometimes, like, a specific line just really grips you, even if it's not, like, the heavy hitter ones. Like, there's, like, what's the name? It's one of those, like, old British comedies. Not that old, I guess. That's, like, a mock educational thing. I think it's, like, Look Around You. There's always this one bit I remember in particular. I don't remember much of that show. But there's always, like, two bits that I remember, in, like, a bit where they're talking about fucking ants. And they just go, like, thank you, ants. Thants. Bless you, ants. Blants.
That's a really
See, like,
good...
I didn't even know that What Are Birds is from Look Around You. That's how, like... That's like so in touch with what I'm talking about here. It's not like the big heavy hitter lines that I'm remembering here. It's fucking blants.
That's so true, though. It's like sometimes all it takes is a normal thing said with a very strange delivery, and it's like this is etched into my soul now.
It's like one of my favorite ever Tim and Eric sketches. Is entirely predilected on the delivery of it. It's the poop tube.
Yes.
The awesome tube that you poop through instead of having to sit down on the toilet. Number one, it sticks out in my head because every single time they say poop tube in that ad, it's like very clearly Eric Wareheim's voice, like 80 yard over the actor. So he's like, my dad said I could sell the poop tube.
Poop tube.
And the bit that always sticks with me from that is when they talk about it has an improved smell, and then just it's the most perfect delivery for something like this. He just looks at the camera and he goes,
It doesn't smell good, but it smells better than it used to.
And there's that slight awkward pause before he says used to.
Oh, it's like I can hear it so clearly in my head.
It really works.
Thanks, Cinco.
Thinka.
Oh man, I recently rewatched Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job, and it really holds up. It's amazing how well that show holds up. It's just a very specific brand of humor.
I have not really kept up with like any of their recent work, although I suppose like On Cinema isn't a Tim and Eric joint. It's like Tim and Greg Turkington and others. I think the funniest comparison that I saw someone make, largely as a joke, that made me go like, maybe I should like track this down and watch a bunch of it someday, is someone was comparing it to like the fucking ending of The Beginner's Guide.
Oh, you're right. Oh my god. That's so real.
That is specifically what made me go, wait, I kind of want to see more of this now.
This is like unlocking something in my brain. The idea of The Beginner's Guide, but it's Tim and Greg. Oh my god, that's amazing. This is it. Chad, if you're lost, I'm sorry. I'm not explaining this to you, but that's really funny.
Go watch On Cinema or play The Beginner's Guide, I suppose.
I have not kept up with On Cinema, but I watched like a 4-hour-long video that was just like documenting the transformation that Tim made and all of the different sub-characters he's played over his time on cinema. And that shit's like a soap opera. It's very, like... He's very good at portraying a specific type of asshole. And he's constantly innovating on it and topping himself in a very impressive way.
He's really good at it, and it's always funny when he takes that to like social media or whatever, and people that aren't in on the bit just take it at face value.
Yes. One of my favorite
That's always good.
Like, there was the whole thing about how for a while he was working with a faith healer named Dr. Sands, who then like got arrested and died in prison. And then
Oh
like
my god.
3 seasons later, it's like he buys a ranch under clearly sketchy circumstances, and then he becomes convinced that the like disgusting grainy pond water on the ranch actually has miraculous like healing properties. And a doctor is like and he's like, I will sell grain water to everyone and I will heal America with it. And
Oh my god.
and a doctor is like, actually it's like you're dying, you can't survive off of nothing but like like protein shakes and groundwater. And and Greg is like, Tim, have you talked to a doctor? And he's like, oh yeah. And then it's revealed halfway through that season that he's like he's like convinced himself that he's talking to the ghost of Dr. Sands, like is like visiting him as an angel.
Oh my
through
god.
seances. And so Greg is like, have you talked to a doctor about this grain water stuff? And he's like, I'm in contact with a doctor.
Oh no.
It's so funny.
That's really good.
Well, and he delivers it so fast, and it's like he's already mad at Greg for even bringing it up. He's like as if they've had this conversation 100 times, and he's like, I'm in contact with the doctor. I do.
Fuck.
One of the most subtle bits is like the character Terry, like her son got shot and killed at a movie theater in the fiction or something, and she's like, yeah, when my son was shot and killed at the movie theater. And Greg like very quietly interrupts her to be like, what movie was it?
No.
It's so subtle, it's so funny. It's like his character would do that. When my son was shot and killed at a movie theater. What movie theater was it? What movie was it? What movie were you watching? Was he watching?
Oh, I should check this out one of these days.
I'll see if I can't find the video if you want something to like put on in the background. It's like pretty long though.
Awesome.
Oh man. Well, what was the answer? I forget. It's always something stupid. It's always like Cheapered by the Dozen 2 or something.
Fuck!
It's always like some super lame like sequel to a comedy movie that didn't do too well to begin with.
It's a really good punchline.
One of my favorite running gags they do is that Greg is always wearing like weird movie merch, but it never matches thematically. Like he'll be wearing like an official branded hat from like The Nut Job 2, the animated children's movie about a squirrel doing a heist, and then he's wearing like and then he'll be wearing a shirt for like 12 Years a Slave or something. Like a very serious historical drama. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Ellie. That's my friend Ellie.
We're supposed to be talking about like philosophy and shit, but I got distracted.
We
being
were.
funny.
They should have tuned in earlier.
Yeah, we've been running for a while, but we're having
What
fun.
the fuck am I talking about? We. You were. I was listening and every now and then grunting.
Loudly sipping water until I noticed you. Hi, Ellie. I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to know about? We've been talking about a lot of shit for a while. Sometimes it can be helpful to like have people ask questions and stuff, but my focus on a lot of this history is very specific and niche.
The relic has
This can be philosophy. That's true.
Finish your mission to find out what's inside.
Is corn grass? I believe corn is grass.
We just don't know.
We had a tarot stream with Jame, and I wanted to know more about the minor arcana. Well, I mean, there's a lot you can know. Like, I don't know, what do you want to know? Sometimes there's cups. It's pretty cool.
I like cups.
I do like cups.
Fine.
Tell us about an esoterically significant bug. Centipedes. I believe the Egyptian god of medicine and poisons is a centipede. And scarabs. Scarabs are also a religiously significant bug. Christians love bees because they're very
They do.
hardworking and they produce honey. And if they need to defend themselves, they sting something and they die, which is similar to a thing that Jesus did. Die.
Kinda.
They're martyrs for the other bees.
Damn. Never thought about it that way.
Yeah. I love old Christian animal symbology because it's like, yeah, the pelican is the most Christ-like bird because it reproduces by stabbing itself in the chest until it bleeds. We don't know why, though.
Pelicanos.
Mormons are very into bee symbology. Yes, they are. They love their labor stuff. It's the most interesting thing I've researched lately. It's a good question. I've been trying to focus on shit that I've already researched, so I haven't been learning any, like, new crazy shit, but it is always interesting learning, like, how far a specific idea goes back into history. Like, sometimes you'll be reading something, and it's like, oh, here's the first... I know every single person who handled this idea over the course of, like, 3,000 years of human history, and I suddenly have this, like, very intense understanding of where I fit into the global scale of history. And there's a little bit of, like, intellectual vertigo there, which is really cool. I had a moment like that earlier about Neoplatonism and how it, like, filtered out through Greece and into Rome and then got translated into the Library of Baghdad and then translated back into the Latin world through Spain and then, like, got passed around in Jewish circles and then, like, re-emerged as Kabbalah, which then the Christians got interested in, and then all of that got swept up in the 18th century occult movements, and it became the Golden Dawn, which was then transmitted by Crowley, and now it's like a thing that I'm talking about on the internet for money.
The great and beautiful continuity of life.
It is. Oh, the Kabbalistic paths with tarot? I know that there's a logic behind how the Golden Dawn organized those, and I was reading about that the other day. Like, Crowley actually changed his mind halfway through his life, where he's like, he swapped, like, the Emperor and the Star and which paths they were on. And I don't really know why. Kabbalah or Kabbalah? I don't actually know. I don't think there's a consistent, like, pronunciation to that. Running something through
I have to go get my dinner sorted and do some other
Yay.
things. Bye-bye.
Bye! It was fun!
It was fun. I will haunt you again some other time you do something like this, probably.
I'm probably going to
Maybe.
do this next Friday. So, thank you for coming.
Yippee!
Whee! Yay, we're all wrong. I don't know how to I don't know how to pronounce Kabbalah. No, I know there's a logic to how the Golden Dawn organized all that shit, but I don't know what that logic is, per se. It's not something I've looked super deeply into, but it's also something I know they designed their own Sephiroth tree around, and the relationships between those Sephiroth trees are very different than, like, even the Christian version of Kabbalah, or Kabbalah. It's like some of them make sense, like fucking having the Fool be, I forget which, like, the Fool is Aleph, like, that obviously makes sense because it's the first one. So it's between the Crown Sephiroth and Enoch, I think. Yeah, Binach. The one on the left. Is that like Kaifoth, or is that a different thing? The Kaifoth are on the bottom of the tree. Like, they are the... See, Sephiroth means... We actually don't know what Sephiroth means, if I recall correctly. But Kaifoth means, like, husks or something. That's, like, the negative, the inverted Kabbalah tree. But also, like, with everything with Kabbalahs, there's, like, a million interpretations of it, even within the Kabbalistic literature of Judaism. So there's no, like... There's no one Kabbalah. It's like alchemy. There's no one alchemy. There are many alchemies. Like, there's no one Kabbalah. There are many Kabbalahs. And having any sort of informed opinion on anything in Kabbalah requires, like, an enormous amount of work. And I'm, like, all I'm doing here is giving you the most barest, like, basics of this, because I can't fucking read Zoharic Aramaic. What are you fucking nuts? I'm not learning Zoharic Aramaic. But, like, Golden Dawn Kabbalah is also pretty complex. It's just, like, layered. It's very layered and syncretic in a way that builds on itself, that requires, like, a diverse field of different forms of knowledge. Neoplatonism feels like the designated punching bag in classics sometimes. Makes me snad. Like, I'm sorry, I thought y'all liked complicated BS. It's like, it kind of was the punching bag, but it was also like real talk, it was also the winner. Like, it's what actually survived. Like, because the Neoplatonists were the people talking about Plato and Aristotle in the most interesting ways, and, like, thinking, in my opinion, the most deeply about how their ideas fit in with other shit. So it kind of was the most influential school after a certain point. Do I have... Yeah, but I mean, when you're that guy, bring it up in a room and everybody looks like that one meme. I've never had that experience. It's like a lot of people are, like, interested in what Neoplatonists have. Okay, you might... we do have to draw a distinction here between, like, late Platonism, like the shit that, late Platonism, like the shit that Plotinus was doing, versus Neoplatonism, which is, like, what Ficino and Pico de Mirandola were doing. That's different. Because, like, Ficino and Pico were weirder. Like, they're significantly more niche than late Platonists. Late Platonism. Plotinus, I don't know. I don't actually know where you put the emphasis on those syllables. Yay, we do love syncretics. Holy shit, we've been live for like 3 hours. Alright, final questions. I'm probably going to wrap up soon here. Yay! Yay! Neoplatonism is nice because with vanilla and chocolate and strawberry you have something for everyone. Yeah! I've heard it said as both Plotinus and Plotinus. I don't think it matters too much. Like, if you want to get mad at me for mispronouncing a classical Greek name, like, that's fine. It's whatever. I am not talking to people about Plotinus on the reg. Maybe I should start. Yeah, maybe you should start, huh? Maybe you're the asshole here. Jumping. Happy. Jumping. Happy. English-Greek pronunciation is genuinely a cryptic art. There's too many vowels. We got to talk to them about that. We got to go back in time and talk to them about how many vowels they put in their words. Yeah, it is your bad. Maybe you should talk to more people about Neoplatonist philosopher Plotinus or Plotinus, depending on how it's pronounced.